that we have displayed in this time of pandemic, and the amazing spirit that has been displayed by these organizations and these speakers who have been coming and visiting and speaking to us on various important topics. So this brand slam is not just a celebration of the amazing work that these corporate stalwarts have put up in their respective fields, but it is also celebration of amazing resilience shown by each one of them. So undying spirit, and as I said, and I would like to say it one more time, the awe-inspiring resilience shown by them. So this brand slam is we organize it every year. This is the 8th edition that we are in. We organize it every year to celebrate their contribution to the corporate ecosystem or corporate fabric, and this year we definitely are celebrating their contribution, plus, as I said, the amazing spirit, and from surviving to thriving. And as I said last time, as in my opening remarks yesterday, that it is about making us believe that if they could have done it, we can make it too. So on that note, let me have the pleasure of introducing our very first speaker to you for the second half of the day. Our first speaker is Ms. Kavyanidhi Narayan, Marketing Head, Collaboration Business, Cisco India and SARC Cisco Systems. Ma'am is a marketing leader. She is responsible for end-to-end marketing of Cisco collaboration products to drive business growth in the region. She brings in 15 plus years of diverse experience in product management, marketing, and pre-sales. She engages with large enterprises and small business customers, partners, analysts, and sales stakeholders to build marketing strategies, solution adoption, digital marketing, and demand generation. Prior to Cisco, she had worked with many technology startups such as Rapid Value, IMI Mobile, July Systems. She has pursued masters in telecommunication engineering from RMIT in Melbourne, Australia, and bachelor's in engineering from Manipal Institute of Technology. Ma'am, today will be addressing us on the topic striking the right balance between creativity and productivity. So, with a round of applause, one more time, let us welcome ma'am, and then over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shika, and thank you everybody for giving me the opportunity to to meet all of you. I know it's not in person, but definitely because of technology today, we are able to meet virtually. That itself is really nice for all of us, so that it's seamless and there is no discontinuity of work. And I hope all of you have had coffee. I know I've been given a slot after lunch, but I will try my best to keep it engaging and not bore you and not put you to sleep. So with that, I would like to share my screen.
Yeah. Visible, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have intentionally selected a non-technical topic for a couple of reasons. One is because these are life skills, creativity and productivity. It is not just useful for as a marketer, but it's also useful for any industry you work in or any field you take. Like if you're a teacher, you're a marketer, you're a manager, any name, even as a student, right? It's very important that we have these two life skills, and this is completely based on my experience. And throughout the session, I will be sharing some examples of what is working for me in real life as well as what is working for me at work. And another interesting part about these two skills are that they are the two ends of the spectrum. So creativity can be endless, whereas productivity is. So how do you handle all these kind of things? At the same time, you need to have creative ideas. Otherwise, same work can get monotonous for us. Same thing doing over again and again. So everybody, each of us, right, as humans, we like to do new things. We like to come out of our monotonous lifestyle, and this whole 1 year itself, you can see if it's like if something expects us to be at home refined in one single place, and if you're forced to do something, we don't like it. But if our work itself is like that, like you have to continue to work from home, we are fine with that. So that's how the human psychology works. And other things, what I have noticed, right, more and more the industry is becoming automated. It is technology driven. You would have heard during the Mintra session as well, where e-commerce is completely technology driven. All the marketing strategy which they require is to drive sales Again, it is, but the sales happens through the technology platform. We also see a lot of robots coming into the market. So does that mean our jobs will be reduced? No, it doesn't. I mean, there's always a myth. There's always people saying that, oh, there's so many bots coming in. Will our jobs get reduced? Will humans working on certain things reduce? No, there's always an opportunity to be creative, come up with new ideas, and then you can contribute and deliver. So that is where I want to get to. So these are some of the creative aspects. Whereas once you step into an organization, right, you will also notice certain organization, not just these startups but also a lot of MNCs, they give more importance to productivity than creativity, only because it is measurable. So we will have systems in place, we will have process in place, and everything is going to be measured based on what the outcome is. Just giving Cisco as an example, we are extremely result oriented. We do not monitor. Even before the pandemic, right, we would thrive to say that we have so much flexibility at work. No, the none of the managers micromanage us. They give us the flexibility to work from anywhere, and as long as they have the trust, as long as we deliver well, as long as we come up with some creative ideas, and we also deliver things on time, the work on time. So you will see different organization, like some of the startups also have worked prior to joining Cisco. They also have a different culture. So each company culture is different, but definitely the most valued skills which I've seen is how you can be creative, at the same time how you can be productive. Just to ensure that we are thinking on the same lines, just simple definition on what I'm referring to creativity. It's about how you can come up with new ideas. In fact, it was interesting to hear from during the Google session. I did listen to all the 3 sessions in the morning, and I like the way how the speaker ended saying that be creative. That's exactly what I want to continue and talk about today. So creativity is coming up with new ideas in any field you're working in, and how do you articulate it and how do you communicate it clearly to the audience? That is equally important. Whereas on the other extreme end, you have productivity where you have to be more focused, you have to meet the deadlines, right? So how do you bridge the gap? So just giving an example of an author, like or a blog writer or an article writer, journalist, right? So you can take days or even months to write a book, but what if there is a deadline to meet, right? So that is where the pressure builds up, and for that I want to convey some important skills or simple tips which has helped me in my life. Okay. So there are some 8 simple tips which I would like to share. One is the ideation. That is the first stage of being creative. So anything you take, right? Think deep. Do not be shallow. Don't try to go deep. Ask yourself many questions. Why is this? What will happen? What is the purpose? So ask your question and think deep in any topic you select. Then read multiple types of content, like for example, if you're working on an article, you can be reading about some comics, you can come up with some humorous ideas, or if it's required as a serious thing, you can read some serious articles. So there are different listen to video formats, watch videos, watch movies. So there are different ways where your creative mind gets stimulated. So be open to every different kind of content what is available for to you. And especially that the internet is filled with so much of information, right? You should know what is right for you, what is wrong for you, and what will help you drive the creative path. And also, as you're doing this, make sure you take notes. A lot of times you have something in mind, but after some time you may forget. So don't be shy of taking notes. I have come across situation when people have commented and saying everything you keep writing. But yes, as you're climbing up the corporate ladder, there are a lot of CIOs. If you look at, they take notes, they make diaries, they maintain. That's the only way for them to ensure that they're productive also, and they're able to deliver results on time. The second one is optimize your environment, especially for a creative mind. You need a quiet place. So do not be distracted. Set a time. For some people, see, for me, I'm an early morning person, so I like to work the first half of the day. I like to be show my productive results first of the day, but a lot of people prefer the evening time. So each of you know best what time works for you. So my way of thinking is do the work first and then you spend time on enjoyment, right? So that's why I like to use the first half doing the work, and then I keep myself free during the evening hours. Keep your gadgets away. I know we have a lot of pros on having technology, mobile and laptops, but when you are working on something creative, keep your gadgets away. Don't get distracted. Okay, I've just posted an Instagram, let me see how many likes I've got. I have posted something on LinkedIn. Let me see if I've got any response on that. So these are small, small distractions which divert us. So keep your phone away. You keep your gadgets away. Just go to a quiet place and spend some time thinking. Now, coming to the productivity side, managing your time is very important. So, as even as a child, I like Shika already mentioned that I've done my masters and my bachelor's. As a bachelor's student, my life was much easier. All that I had to do is focus on my studies, even though I was in a hostel. Everything else was taken care by the mess and everything else, and I only studied. But really, when I understood the need to manage time was when I was doing my masters, where I was staying with a couple of roommates, right? You have to manage cooking, you have to manage cleaning, you have to study, you have to work, you have to do so many things. And it becomes very overwhelming. I'm sure a lot of you are already facing this, but these things will become tougher and tougher. So the most important, even to be productive, is you have to know how to manage your time. Don't pick up things which are unnecessary. Just focus on what is needed to be done and just work on that. Like for example, some people are good at multitasking, some people are good at doing multiple projects together. So it depends on what your personality is, right? So try to do two or three things, stay focused on that and try to balance between multiple things. Second is break down the workflow. So there may be instances where if you have picked up, for example, again going back to the blog, so maybe sometimes an introduction will take the longest time, whereas the other content may not take time. So just break down the workflow on how much time you will take for that particular piece, and then lesser time, right? That way it will help you to achieve your goals at a time which you need to finish in. The third one is to reduce brainstorming. Like I mentioned in the beginning, creativity can be endless. You can take days, you can take months to come up with that brilliant wow idea. But we don't have a time is not endless. So reduce your time on brainstorming and thinking and see what is the appropriate for you. So for example, if your project is for a month, right, maybe you can spend 2 weeks for getting an idea, but once you have the idea you'll have to move it quickly. So you plan it out accordingly, work backwards, and see and keep couple of days buffer also to go through it again and again, and then get into the execution part. So these are some of the tips you can use to manage. I'm sure a lot of you are already doing it, but these are some good reminders when you look back in life. And some of the skills where I also feel I could improve, or it's good that I had it. So that's why, like, as a person who has like 15 years of experience, I want to share those simple tips with you, and hope you will continue to do it. The fourth one is plan and organize your project. So before you even start your project, right, see the what the purpose is. Why are you trying to do it? Set an hourly goal for it. Know what your end goal is. It shouldn't be that you've reached the end of the project and then you realize, oh, I made a mistake, right? So spend enough time planning it out before you get into any kind of execution. So this is the same thing I teach my son who is in grade 8. He has the habit of, I want to do it quickly. No, I tell him, just relax. Spend 2 minutes reading the question correctly. Otherwise, it sometimes in mathematics, what happens to him is he will do the whole thing, then he realize, oh, this was not it, but he has 5 to 10 minutes of his time is gone. He's not able to finish the paper. So he has now slowly started realizing, yes, I do agree with you now. So spend time analyzing what the question is, plan it out, and then get into the execution stage. Some other things, so these are refresh. So a lot of times we cannot work hours together, even if you're studying or you're doing any job. So as a best practice, what even the expert advice is, for every 1 hour, take a 5 to 10 minute break, especially be off screen, go out somewhere, see greenery, talk to your friend, just have a general conversation, have a cup of coffee, just take that break. You will realize that when you come back, you are far more productive than you would have sat for 2 to 3 hours continuously. Of course, during exam time, you can't do, that's a different skill you'll have to develop. But during your regular work hours, or when you're doing some assignment, do spend, take a 5 minute short break between every hour, get refreshed and come back. And for some people, even power naps help, like taking a 10-minute nap between a heavy long day what you have. Exercise is very important. I know a lot of people say, I've got so much to do, I have no time. And this is even adults, right? You will see people who are 50, 60 years also, they will say, I have so many things going on. Going back again, plan our day. And there may be days, I mean, I'm sure there are days where each of us are so packed that we cannot do, but at least 3 to 4 days in a week, dedicate at least 20 hours. It's like, make it a routine. Go for a walk. Not all of us are very sporty, but anything, just going out for a walk, fresh air within your community, even inside the house. Now I know, I do understand during pandemic it may be tough, or in your campus if you have space. I mean, just spend some 20 minutes doing some outdoor, or getting yourself some kind of exercise, or do your yoga, meditation, any kind of exercise. So these things definitely make an impact. Disrupt from your regular routine. So it may sometimes get monotonous to just work in a single space. So work from a coffee shop, again, when you can do it, not right now, but definitely post pandemic days, work from a coffee shop. A lot of startups nowadays, what they do is, they don't have an office of their own. They work from Starbucks, or they ask their employees to have meeting over there. In fact, myself, when I joined my first company, it was a startup. We did not have an office. I would meet my manager, who was the CEO, once in a week in a coffee shop, just for brainstorming and checking the progress of my work. So definitely different environments do help. Have a fun and energetic environment. Always have positive energy. I know sometimes we are so overwhelmed, we have negative thoughts. Try to stay away from negative thoughts as much as possible. Nobody likes to be surrounded with negativity. So try to generate positive thoughts, tell good for others, automatically people will tell good about you. Work as a team. There may be instances where you're doing teamwork. So you can identify who is the creative person in your team, who is the analytical person, everybody has different skill set, right? So if you think you're a more creative person, I know everybody needs to be creative, but if you are far more creative than somebody else in your team, ensure you work on that. You give the other task, like person who's strong in analytics, they can work on that part, right? And discuss in a group. That way you can also meet your deadline, you can be productive, and also you can split the load. It doesn't become overwhelming just for you. And then take ownership as one person and then consolidate it. So teamwork is far, far, far more important just doing it individually. And also different ideas flow in when you work as a team, when you ask questions to each other. Customer feedback, be open to. When I say customer here, actually I'm referring to your peers, your team members, your friends, your teachers. Be open to feedback, especially as a child. We do get bothered when teachers give us feedback. All of us want to be appreciated, but sometimes you will also realize that your teachers are here to teachers, managers, anybody, right? Anybody senior to us, they want to always wish good for us. So criticism is critical. Take it positively, and ensure you work on those skills. And we all feel we are good at everything, but sometimes we don't realize, okay, somebody else, you have to look at it from other person's perspective also. So a third person's perspective, second person's perspective, right? So take it seriously, and seriously in the sense, in a good way, and learn from it and take it as a learning, and ensure you use it as an advantage rather than feeling bad about it, or not taking it in the right way. So some simple tips: don't fear of failure, limit your success, right? All of us, I mean, be confident, don't be scared. Okay, maybe my a creative idea is not good. There's nothing called a bad idea as long as you're not harming anybody else. So don't fear, be confident on whatever you say. People may laugh sometimes, but that's fine. If you're really good at something, people do make fun, and there are different kinds of people all of us come across. So don't let fear be a failure for you. So be confident, and put your ideas across with full confidence. And like I also mentioned in the during the award ceremony, there is no shortcuts to success. So this is one of the very important skill to have. Work hard, and that will definitely lead to make you more productive also. So do not don't get carried away doing shortcut things, because your quality you cannot compromise it. For everybody it is visible. Dedicate a time every day for thinking. So when we start coming to the corporate world, right, we will be packed with meetings, and I often feel that there is no time to read anything, or there's no time to think. I'm just executing all the time, right? So dedicate some time, even sometimes 30 minutes, or if you have the leisure, then you can even get 1 hour. Dedicate a time only to think. That is where how your creative ideas will flow. Okay, and let your ideas flow. Do not restrict yourself into just small pockets. Just think about everything, and like I said, read a lot as much as possible. So that is something I missed out in childhood. I was focusing so much into sports, and I did definitely do well in my academics, but reading is something I missed. So now when I look back, right, I feel reading is a very, very important skill, because you learn a lot. You learn a lot from the experts, you learn a lot from the others. So spend a lot of time on reading anything, even short articles. Nowadays a lot of people listen to videos, that's also good. So as much as possible, spend time on reading. So how do you strike the right balance, right? Stay calm. It is not easy to stay calm. We often get stressed, especially because all of our workload is so much, as a student, as a marketeer, as a professional. So that is something we all need to learn, because once when we try to stay calm, right, we are able to think. So to stay calm as much as possible. Don't get stressed. Stay focused. Do not get deviated, with external things. Your mind will keep changing. So stay focused. Any creative idea you have picked up, right, try to stay focused. That is how you can get into the depth of it. Stay relevant. So if any topic is being given to you, or you choose a topic, right, it has to be relevant to what the end goal has to be. So having the purpose, having the end goal is very important. That will help you to stay relevant. So keep questioning yourself, keep talking to people, figure out whether you're moving in the right path. Some people are close to their parents, some people are close to their teachers. So you know best, whom you're close to. Some people are close to their siblings, their friends, their roommates. So there's so many people, right? So keep brainstorming with them, exchanging ideas with them. You never know, who may give a very good input on the creative piece you're working on. So do talk to people, and try to stay relevant. So these are from my experience. Keep life simple. Do not complicate it too much. We already have too much complex things happening around us. So keep it as simple as possible, as minimal as possible, and try to stay focused. So I'm a half marathon runner. What has helped me is the stamina, determination, and commitment. This is one of the reasons I've told you: exercise. So every time, I used to go for my, like, I was representing Karnataka state for athletics in my younger days. And every time it used to be very close to my exams. And what I realized is whenever I went for an event and I came back, I did far better than I was just, I was wasting so much of time just chatting with friends and, roaming around in the hostel. So, but if I would go for these events, if I would go for playing badminton, that is the time when I actually, because I had very little time to study, and I made maximum use of that time. So definitely exercise. I don't say everybody should run marathons. Even doing a walk is good, but that stamina, that determination, that commitment that you need to do well, it definitely comes with your any kind of physical activity which you do. Don't just be academic focused. I know we are all living in a rat race. We all want to achieve, we all want to come first and succeed. But do not forget that time management, hard work, being sincere, we shouldn't compromise on any of those things. In fact, automatically you will see the good results in your in your academics too. Focus on quality. I know as a student, I also had so many subjects to do, so many things to do. But how do we balance both? We have to ensure that the quality does not deteriorate. So ensure that you give quality output. Don't just run to just do quantity stuff. So these are some of my learnings, which I hope it's helpful for you all as well. Be satisfied and content in life. So I know there is no end to what we need. I often see a lot of people. I wouldn't say that I'm the best, right? So we are not satisfied. We just want to do more. Even if we are appreciated, you have at back of your mind, oh, maybe I could do a little bit more. Maybe I could do better. Be satisfied. Celebrate small wins, right? Any small creative thing you have done, and if people have appreciated it, feel happy about it. That's what will keep you motivated. That's what will make you to do faster. The more you practice, right, you'll be able to do it faster. You'll be able to do more productive as well. So even during promotions, right, it's not just the degree. There are a lot of times where you'll see the peers will get promoted as your manager. There are instances like that which happen, and then you feel, oh, I'm more qualified than that. Oh, I've got more years of experience. That's not it. There are a lot of things, other skills which are getting evaluated when you're getting promoted from class to class, or from a position to position, from your project, the kind of projects you get to do, right? So don't, it's not just about the degree. Do ensure that you develop life skills, you contribute, you volunteer, you work with the team member, right? Because these all ultimately, it all stitches back, coming back to the same topic of being creative when you talk to different people, or versus you're productive, because you're doing so many things. You naturally start learning to how to manage time and delivering things on time. Then other than that, be open to learning, unlearn, relearn, because whenever you change jobs, you will notice that company culture is different. Whenever you change departments, like I started as a product manager, I did pre-sales, I did product management, and now I'm into marketing. Like 8 years, past 8 years, I'm into marketing. So every skill you need over here is different. But what has been common for me has been that every work requires that creativity. It requires to me submit on we have deadline, so we have to be productive. So balance all these skills. So be willing to learn. Each manager is different, so learn how to work with different kinds of people. Working as individual is very easy. Working as a team, working under somebody's guidance, under somebody's mentorship, that is a difficult path. So try to get along with everybody, and try to learn from people. Be confident. So this is what I keep telling my son also when he shies away from certain things. I'll tell him, be confident. Not everybody doesn't know everything, right? And a lot of times we make mistakes even when we speak. So just be confident. What you're saying, you tell it with confidence, and I'm sure other person will also learn, get ideas from you, right? They may laugh, but then later they will realize, or even after some years, right, it will be there back of that mind that, okay, I learned from this person, that time I laughed, but see, it's important to me, right? So just whatever you say it confidently. Again, don't harm anybody. So a very famous quote from Albert Einstein. He says, "Strike not to be success, strike not to be success, but rather to add value." This is going back to the same thing what I said. Focus on quality, not on quality. Don't run behind success, but continuously try to add value, try to give in some new ideas. That is how you're going to make a difference, across your peers, across your team. So if you want to stand out, try to come up with some new ideas, because that is what is relevant right now in the market. So with this, I do not want to take too long. I know 40 minutes is assigned to me, but all the best. Please keep in mind that celebrate all the small wins. I am open to any kind of mentorship you need. Connect with me through LinkedIn, and anything on marketing you want. I'm definitely happy to do a technical session for you all one on one. Also, I can do that as a separate topic. So with this, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And try to be of value. What an amazing thought to end the session with. Thanks, ma'am, for letting us know about the nuances of productivity and creativity, and how can we find the right balance between the two. The 8 steps, rather the eight pointer that you gave to us to in order to find the right balance, which will ideation, optimize your environment, manage your time, plan and organize your project, refresh, disrupt from your routine, which is very important, teamwork and customer feedback. So they are really, really very useful to us. If we implement that, I'm sure each of us can start the journey towards finding that right balance. And there were many life lessons, and there were various statements that you made in your presentation, which actually touched the heart chords. My personal favorite being, don't let fear of failure limit your success. And you also mentioned, people may laugh sometimes, but that's fine. And keep life simple, celebrate even the small wins. Thank you so much for this amazing session, ma'am.
Thank you.
On that note, if you allow, we would take up some questions from students.
Sure,
So
sure.
due to paucity of time, we may not be able to take all the questions, but we'll try to cover as much as possible. So the first question is from a student named Akshay Chaudhary. Akshay, do we have you
Yes,
unmuted?
ma'am.
Okay, Akshay,
Ma'am, am
go
I
ahead.
audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Akshay Chaudhary, and I am from Indira Institute of Management, PGDM. Ma'am, my question to you is, ma'am, PM Narendra Modi has expressed his views of connecting all the villages of India. Ma'am, India is a huge market. So, ma'am, how does Cisco Systems view this opportunity
Yeah,
for the
so
market?
yeah, sure. Thanks, Akshay. So we are very closely working with the government. In fact, Cisco, our chairman, John Chambers, he's a very strong believer of digital India. So we are definitely working very closely with the government. And in fact, we do a lot of projects, including our collaboration tools, right, which is used by PM Modi. So definitely we are quite closely engaged with them.
Thanks, ma'am. So, ma'am, the next question is from Astha Sengar. Astha, you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Astha Singh from Indira School of Business Studies, PGDM HR batch 2022. And I'm curious to know, what are some of the measures put in your organization to encourage employees to show creativity in areas like quality management and new product development, etc.
Sure. So we have a certain tools in place which measure our success and on how we work. And so we have like these weekly check-ins with our manager. We have a tool called Team Space where we have to check in, where they measure like how much we are contributing. Especially coming from a sales and a marketing background, how we are measured is on targets. So we have certain targets every quarter which is measured on Salesforce. So we need to achieve those targets. And for marketers, we have to bring in the right amount of leads, which leads, when I say, is potential customers, which are given to the sales team. So this is completely system driven. So nothing is like vocal or, just on emails. Everything has to be entered into the system. So I hope I have answered your question, or anything
Yes, ma'am.
else.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. One question we have from Shweta Bangale. Shweta, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, very much.
Yes. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing such insightful information with us. Myself, Shweta Manwale from MBA IIMT, batch 2022. So, ma'am, my question is, ma'am, as you being a marketing head, what do you think? Which type of challenges does your company face during the COVID-19 period for marketing your products? And also, by maintaining the productivity with creative ideas?
So thank you, Shweta, for asking this question. In fact, I would tell this has been a booming year for us. Like I lead collaboration and we sell video conferencing tool. You must have heard about WebEx, Cisco WebEx. So that's the platform which we sell. We have a lot of video devices as well, which we sell. So for us, in fact, last year, what we have done is we have given a lot of free devices to the government and the education sector so that they continue to work seamlessly, even the police department as well as ministers. So that is one part we have tried to help the society. And the second one is we also offered free trials. We had unlimited free trials in the market for the entire year. And in fact, we're continuing right now also so that even the startups or individuals who want to connect with their students as well as their peers, their employees, customers, right? So they were able to do that. So that is how we have been trying to help. And in terms of creative, so launch of our e-commerce site, we rolled it out very quickly in the market so that we could, speeden up the whole process. So that was one of the creative ideas which we got in to stay ahead of the competition as well as to support the society during the pandemic.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. There are so many compliments for you in the chat box, ma'am. People writing. Let me just read them. Thank you so much, ma'am. This was relatable, very useful for us. Thank you for the wonderful session. It was a superb session. Very useful tips. Celebrate small wins. Very amazing session. Thank you, ma'am. Learned a lot. Again, amazing session, wonderful session. So all these comments in the chat box by our students, ma'am, they reflect how much they loved whatever you spoke and how much useful it is for all of us and how implementable the simple tips given by you are. Thanks, ma'am. Happy to have host you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Kavya. It was a wonderful session. You really gave very, very useful tips. And I hope the students will implement some of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next speaker that we have is Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Senior Vice President, Marketing and Digital, Future Generali India Life Insurance Company Limited. Sir is a marketing professional with over 17 years of experience in various verticals of marketing. During the career span of 17 plus years, he has worked for brands like Nokia, eBay, General Motors, HCL, Vodafone, Jubilant, and Hero Motors Company, and extensively trained on consumer, trade, B2B marketing, analytics. He has handled assignments of digital marketing, consumer insights, data analytics, CRM, e-commerce, product management, pricing, placement, consumer promotion, brand launch, brand management, events, incentive schemes, PR management, trade promotions, branding and visibility planning, to name a few. Sir, kitna kaam kiya hai? Sir is a highly tech savvy in the amalgamation of various platforms and technologies and the usage of data mining and visualization software like Tableau, apart from advanced Excel. Sir is active in supporting various organizations apart from his full-time employment. He is currently an advisor with Prune, Touchwood Bellset, and PMI, which is an organization focused on to providing CRM and data analytics support. Sir is also a music buff, besides being an avid leader, and loves to cycle around in his free time. Today, Sir will be speaking to us on the topic Today of Tomorrow. Before Sir begin his session and I say over to you, Sir, Sir could not join us in the morning award ceremony. So let's congratulate Sir with a huge round of applause for having, being conferred upon Marketing Excellence Indira Blandslam Award 2021. Ashish, sir, over to you. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Shikha. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Sate, for inviting me.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. thanks for having me here. I think it's my pleasure to be here. I mean, I love being with students and being in college. I think it allows me to go back to my own college life. It also is an opportunity for us who are somehow busy in corporate life to go back to the our roots and try and learn more. So today I would say that it is as much an opportunity for me as much it is for anybody else, okay, to co-learn. So I would encourage you guys to please feel free to interrupt me in between. Feel free to ask your questions. Feel free. I mean, this is your presentation. What I have done is I've just tried to encapsulate some of my thoughts on insurance industry, and I certainly feel that this is something insurance as far as life insurance is concerned. It is said that we protect tomorrow. At the end of the day, you pay me today so that I can help you tomorrow when you need. Okay, and in a sense, I think if I were to think about it, I have come to BFSI only about a couple of years back, and when I came to BFSI, I wasn't sure how much depth BFSI has got. Insurance per se, everybody had a question to me that what are you going to do with insurance? I mean, you have never worked in an insurance brand. At that point in time, I wasn't sure of for the ride which I am about to have, and I must tell you, it has been an absolute pleasure to be here. So let us have a look what I have done over next some 10, 12 slides. I've just tried to encapsulate my overall learnings about industry and my learnings around here. And let us see if I can add some value to your time, what we are going to spend for next 40 odd minutes. But before that, I start just a little bit of a background about future generally, just to set the context. I hope it okay. Yeah, internet is working, so I think it should work. Yeah. Uh, I hope Miss Sathe, you are.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think that is what. Okay, just give me a second. Yeah, come back. Yes. So that is what the organization which I belong to, which is Future Generali India Life Insurance. I think it's a joint venture between Future and Generali. Incidentally, yesterday we completed our 190 years of
Wow.
existence. So in fact,
Congratulations.
oh, thank you. So, in fact, if you look at, I think Generali is one of those organizations which has seen the max amount of turmoil in the world history, from surviving two world wars to surviving the pandemic. Before we even knew the word pandemic, I think what we have come to know pandemic is just about last year. Generali has seen almost about 5 odd pandemics in their entire history of existence. So, and we remain very bullish about future. Future generally, if I talk about, was incorporated year 2007, present in 136 locations. About 1.3 crore plus lives have been secured. 96 odd percent of our individual death claim ratio, and almost 4,500 plus crore of our assets under management, which means the total assets which we are managing at this point in time, got a multiple host of awards and accolades. And I'm just passing it through so that you guys have some background about future generally. And then we should dwell upon to what insurance has got. And this is the interesting part of the uh, talk which I want to do, which is about what is the life insurance opportunity. I mean, if I were to ask you guys, how many of you would be even interested into looking a future into a life insurance? Typically, when we think about life insurance, we think about one old uncle coming to our house once in a year for collection of a check. In fact, there's a joke typically in society which goes around saying, if you have too many friends, if too many people visit you, become a life insurance agent, you will suddenly start living at peace. And that's the and trust you me, we have done as insurer. After I have joined insurance, I think as an insurer, we work overtime to protect that image of ourselves. We are the one who have done a lot to get that imagery. But is that what insurance is all about? What does insurance looks like in country? There was some hand which went up, and I'm okay to be disturbed in between. So, Rahul, I think you had a question. If you raise your hand, how do you? Okay, Shika, how do you want me?
IT team is there, sir. So what will happen? These students will keep on posting their queries in the chat box. Plus, some of the questions they have already forwarded to us. So towards the end of your session, like once you are done, then maybe I'll read out all the questions to you, and then you can answer them. Does that work
Super.
well?
Yeah, works well.
Great.
In
Great.
fact, then we'll keep the flow in
Sure,
my
sir.
head.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I is that what insurance is all about? Is that insurance is those pesky callers or those chasing uncles which kind of keeps dropping in it at our place? That's not exactly true. If I look at the entire evolution of insurance industry in the country, it goes back. In fact, you guys would be surprised. Before we country got freedom, before we became the Union of India, as we call it, or Republic of India, there were almost around 180 plus insurance companies were operating in India. It were all small and large sizes industry. The current form of insurance sector which you see started taking shape from year 1972 when LIC was formed. So all these small, large companies were merged together. Government took control, and in 72, LIC was being made as one umbrella body to provide insurance in the country. Came 99 when, with the divestment going up, I think that's when government decided and opened up insurance sector to private players. So all private players you today see, whether it is us or it is anybody else, we are all have formed after 1999. That's when insurance IRDAI was being created, which stands for Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, which controls and which governs all the insurance functions. This, to your surprise, is one of the most governed sector in the country, almost as tightly or probably more as much a banker is. Just to give you a context to it, if as a marketing guy, if I want to send out a SMS to my customers, contrary to a popular belief that insurers can use and abuse data, I need to send that SMS first to IRDAI, get an approval from them, and then only I can send it to customers. That governed this sector is. But that's a very interesting thing, and I would talk about it a little later. In 2014 around, there was a FDI change which brought in to 26 to 49%, and that's when you suddenly saw the eruption of insurance happening in the country. Came 2015 when government announced a wide social security scheme, which is Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, which was packed to create an environment of social security. And the current 2021, we saw another change happening in the current budget, which is being kind of announced at this point in time, which is it is a budgetary announcement that FDI gets proposed to 74%. What it means to us is why would and what is more important here to see is the FDI changes in the sector. The FDI changes ensures and gets you the funding, which is insurance is a heavy capital intensive business. Just to give you a context, what is if you look at the insurance, the very at a very fundamental level, insurance is a group of people coming together to say that in case statistically a fraction of that group goes through a challenge, the rest of the group members will come and secure. Do you know we actually humankind deals into insurance for a very, very fairly long time, much before we became in the current town dwellers. When we were foragers, then also we were into insurance. Very simplest form of insurance was why were humans staying in a group and not alone? A solitary life. It's an insurance. Why? You don't have fridge, you don't have coolers, you have to hunt large animals. You need a lot of people. Why do people share? They share. It's like an insurance. I have done a hunt, I have killed a large deer. I can't eat it alone. I will give it to the rest of the group so that tomorrow when I don't kill, somebody else kills. I get that share. It's a very, very simple, at a simplistic level, that's what insurance is all about. Insurance is about a group coming together to for a one specific cause, which statistically can only happen to X number of people. And that's what insurance is all about. The larger the group, the lesser are the statistical probability becomes much more predictable. We all are management student, and I am sure, I hope I am not talking Greek on that front. Statistical probability is or the what they say H naught one. The hypothesis one is always stronger the bigger the group size. So the larger is the group size, the more probability comes on that your insurance predictions go right. And that's what insurers do. They create a group of people for one particular cause. If we look at the insurance density, why is country so bullish about insurance, and why do you should look at this sector for yourself or to build up a career for yourself? If you look at the insurance penetration as a premium percentage of GDP from a gross domestic product premium percentage, we are only at about 2.7% is life, non-life. And non-life, when I talk about, is the insurance which is more often than not mandated by government. So when you drive a vehicle, you need to insure it. That's called as a non-life insurance. When you take a Ola cab, you insure your ride. That's a spot insurance, non-life insurance. When you book a flight, you insure. That's a non-life spot insurance. Again, a part of the insurance sector. All these things are in a life insurance, which contributes to 2.7% as an insurance density to premiums, is only about 55 out of 1,000. So that low. It is about $55. It is, if I look at somewhere in the global level, the same penetration. This is how India looks like. We are almost about 3.3. A developed country like Japan and UK and USA, or which are highly penetrated country, as a part of GDP, they are much, much ahead from us. That tells us that there is a heavy headroom to growth. The growth headroom is also very clearly indicated from the market size. This is not a small industry which we are talking about. While we might look at an individual premium being small, the fairly large industry. If we look at FY20, if we look at almost about 35% of entire India's total savings is gone towards life insurance. Life insurance is not only in India and most of the Asian countries. Life insurance is not only looked at from a point of view of risk hedging, but also this is one form of savings. If you look at our December, January, February are very, very heavy month from that side of a business, for a very simple reason that you go through the entire, in India, the financial planning starts from tax planning, and tax planning happens during these 3-4 months, and that's the reason suddenly you saw a upsurge on life insurance. If we look at the gross premiums underwritten, which is what how much premiums are paid by people, it's about 108, or I would say almost about 2.56 trillions is what we are paying. From FY12, it was only about FY12 it was 2.56 trillions, which is 10 from 7.31 trillion in FY20. So that is a kind of a growth which industry has gone through. And if we look at the effect which I was talking earlier in my earlier slide about opening up of market and why it is very important that markets open up. And this is only a cusp or a tip of an iceberg, because of today you are talking about some 74% FDI coming in. When FDI is 49%, private share from government to private share increased from 2 to 31%. It's only anybody's guess. There are guesses that once LIC's IPO goes through and this 74% FDI actually takes place, you would have the overall penetration. This pie chart can actually change. LIC will come down to almost about 32%, and rest will go to private players. And there's a reason behind it, because of insurance remains a heavy service industry. And private players not only are creating business, they are actually working, and there are a lot of tailwinds which are there to the industry. If we look at Indian economy is growing, we are looking at a economic growth all over. You see all around you, the new infra is coming up. You see suddenly the India is one of the youngest country in the world. There is a high individual disposable income which exists in India, and per capita GDP is also increasing. As a result of which, people are looking at different savings avenue. And fourth, one of the largest factor which is driving insurance is more your life expectancy has gone up. Your work expectancy hasn't. So while the retirement age today, what I mean to say is retirement age today also stands almost about 58, 60 years. What was the survival ratio of only about 12 odd people surviving beyond 70s? Today, that is like some 38% people easily survive beyond that. People are going to, average age is coming to about 82 now. So which means your earning will stop, your expenses won't, which means you have to save for future. And insurance comes as a very, very smart tool at that point in time, which means that when people start looking for a sound financial planning, insurance or insurer's role gets strengthened in that financial planning. And that's where it provides very, very good career opportunities for people. There are a lot of trends which are changing in insurance. The sudden penetration is not happening just like that. It is happening because of there is an online traction which is on move. Today, earlier, it was only about you will call up or you will go and meet up somebody and get that information. Today, that's not the case. People are consuming media time. In fact, there's a Google study which has just come out where it says almost an average individual spends about 7 hours, 11 minutes online on a daily basis, whereas TV's viewing has gone down. There's an online traction on move, which means online or a digital medium allows you to consume content in your own movement. There's a web aggregators which are there, which are increasing consumer awareness. It's not only today you go to Amazon, you go to a Flipkart, you can get an insurance out there, both life and term. So policy bazaars or policy X and money controls kind of a web aggregators which are driving the penetration, which are reaching far flung areas and helping connect and create more awareness. There are organizations which are moving away from paper based to a sourcing and servicing to a digital mode of sourcing and servicing, which means you are cutting a lot of fat in between and you are connecting directly with the consumers. Opportunity for young talent to get into this area, because of that's when You can create value. You can, when an industry is in a hyper growth mode, and it is also going through a traditional disruption, as they say, it's only a signal for a young talent to go and construct at that point in time. I won't say that this is precisely a sunrise industry, but I would certainly say that this is an industry which is on the cusp of one another wave of growth. It is growing for a while, and it will keep growing. There are premiums and claims, both are becoming digital. What it means is your category code, which is of trust, it is getting strengthened. And when the category code gets strengthened on the trust, that's the time when category will further start penetrating. And there is the emergence of new distribution formats and players. You will have, I mean, till about 2006, banks were not selling insurance. LIC used to only sell insurance from a normal traditional channel. Today, your banks sell insurance. Look at in 2016, Amazon started selling insurance, as I was saying. I was telling you, like today, you don't even realize in a phygital world, the moment you oscillate between a digital and physical interactions. When you are booking a cab, you have a tab there which says, do you want to insure your ride? And you click yes. You book a flight, it has an insurance attached to it. So you have multiple different form factors in which insurance is getting packaged and being consumed by customers. And this is all on the backbone of young talent like you guys on the call, which is enabling all this to happen. And which gets me to the last slide of it. It actually brings in a lot of career opportunities for people like you who are on the call. There are enormous career opportunity in insurance on the marketing and digital front. It's only about, because of all these organizations have a legacy, but also have a very, very forward looking front. And that is where you guys bridge the gap of getting the consumer insights and creating new platforms for connecting with consumers. There's an opportunities for sales, opportunities are there. There are product opportunities. I mean, think about any movement which has any uncertainty can be insured. You would have heard, and people would have laughed about it, that Lata Mangeshkar's throat is insured because of singing. It could be it's a what if movement. If tomorrow her entire throat is not, or she's not, anything was to happen to her vocal cord, it's a what if movement for her. It can be insured. You are doing this conference, you can go ahead and very well insure this conference, and at least 10 different kind of insurance can happen on this conference. Things like, what if Zoom was to fail? You have insurance for that. You can certainly create a package. What if a speaker was not to turn up? You have insurance for that. What if, I don't know, I mean, it's only about your imagination. Anywhere insurance, the interesting part about insurance is it's an answer to all what ifs of your planning. You plan, if it happens, good. If there is a what if, ever there is a what if, there is an insurance. That's what product does. It's about thinking about how do you slice and dice that what if and create into a product format. It's about actuarial, which are nothing but are people who price that what if, that what can be priced at, are the possibilities of what if happening. Okay, IT, technology, infra. I mean, I can go on and on talking about the opportunities. The being here is, I think that there are, you rather than just looking at a traditional FMCG or a telecom or any other sector, I think there is a sector which should certainly be looked at. There is a lot of misnomer about the sector because of, again, I would say, the pesky callers who keep calling up. And I would say that I think it's only in the hands of you and us to change that, probably the imagery which has been created, and create a better imagery for insurance sector in which we can create careers, and we can actually create a better world which is more protected, which is in which we provide a safeguard for our future generations. Any questions? I think
Yes, sir.
I'm done.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for such an informative presentation, and all of us all the audience who are tuned in at the moment, we all have better clarity about insurance sector per se. You spoke about the opportunities in life insurance, the evolution of life insurance across the years, insurance density, market share, current trends, and of course the career opportunity, which indeed is very very useful information and useful insight, especially for our students. So thank you once again, sir. And for questions, so there are some questions. There are some students who have mailed us their questions already, and we'll unmute them and they will ask their questions to you. So first student who I call upon is Abhishek Kale. Abhishek, you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. So, my name is Abhishek Anil Kare. I am from IMP PGDM. So, sir, I just had a question that in this current period or in this current budget, FDI limit has been increased to 74% from 49%. So, sir, how will you manage these changes, and will you grab this as an opportunity? How will you grab this as an opportunity in order to increase the total revenue?
Okay, Abhishek, thanks. That's a very interesting question. Okay, so if you look at what I touched upon that topic for a very brief moment, FDI increment means that you have much more capital available for you to insure. So just to give you an example, okay, how does insurance work? You will need to understand that. Think about it that you are a group of say 100 friends, okay. Each one of you say that there is a possibility you are going for a trip. Just say you are going from Bombay to a Goa trip, and you say, okay, my Goa trip will probably say there are chances that we have XYZ expenses, but there are chances that for some reason there could be overspend. The overall amount of overspend could be $100. So each one of us will probably invest 1 rupee each because of your 100 students. You will create a fund of 100 bucks. And then there are chances of saying that what are the chances? Almost only about one person will be able to afford that. So I could only say, for example, one person was to go sick because of food sickness. You will only need 100 bucks. So only everybody needs to only contribute 1 rupee. What are the money if you want to, if there was a chance of two people going down, you would probably contribute 2 rupees each and become 200 the way. So basically what you are doing is you are creating a contingency plan or a fund for a group. This is the percentage. The way insurance works is very very similar. If it was an insurance company, I would create a package of 100 people. The only difference is the very first day when I sell the first person the package, I need to have 100 rupees in my pocket to even collect the very first rupee. So if I go and underwrite your risk for the very first person, as an insurance player, I need to submit 100 rupees with me so that I know that out of 100 people, only one person will fall sick, but I do not know which will be that one person. Will that be a first person or will be the 100th person getting into a group? And this is called as a capital infusion or requirement of capital to do any business. And insurance is a very, very capital intensive business. The FDI increment will allow for us to attract a lot of capital, free capital from different markets. And there's a reason behind it. I mean, if you were to look at the word capital market, you would probably appreciate for example, the interest rate in India, which currently are in the bracket of about 6%. In Japan, the interest rate is only about 0.8, 0.9%. Because of the GDP saturation, it's so you will be able to attract that capital at a lower cost. There's a cost of capital. You will be able to get that capital at a lower cost, which means you will be able to increase penetration. And the more penetration we increase, the better revenues organization can expect. I'm sorry, it was a long answer to a very short question, but I thought it is important that you understand how does the capital work in an insurance industry per se. I hope that was
Yes, yes, sir.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next question, which is from Pratiksha Amritkar. Pratiksha, you there? So she's not there. Oh,
She's
I
there.
can see her. Yeah, I can see her. Okay, Pratiksha. Yeah.
Am I audible?
You are, Pratiksha. Go ahead.
From IS. My question is, as we all know in India, as per the recent IRDA report, not even 3% of people are insured, even though the term insurance being available at 1,000 per less than 1,000 per month. So why is it so difficult to market insurance? And what are the factors that drive sales of market?
I'll repeat Pratiksha's question for you, sir. I think there's some network issue at her end. So, yeah, you were not able to hear her questions, no? It was just not me.
I wasn't.
Okay, sure. So I'll read out her question, sir. She's asking, in India, as per a recent IRDA report, not even 3% of people are insured. Even though the term insurance being available at less than 1,000 per month, why is it so difficult to market insurance products? And what are the factors that drive sales of insurance products?
I mean, Pratiksha, I must say it's a very good question. Okay. See, I would like to answer it in two ways. One is the probably what we marketers do in terms of market research, and second at a very, very philosophical level. India is a very God-loving country. And the reason why we have created God at certain moment because of so that we can attribute everything which does not go according to us to him. If it did not happen, it is because of God did not wanted us. So we run to astrologers more than we probably go to our career coaches. There's a there are four basic things which is top for any or which any one of us look at. It won't happen to me. I am a good man, so nothing bad will happen to me. If something bad happens to me, it is my karma which I am paying for. And third thing which we probably try and keep ourselves is I will do it tomorrow. I think these are three things which really which typically we see as an entry barrier for anybody to the category. There's a fourth one that India also has a large community size living. And when I say community size living, what I mean is if something was to happen to me today, there's a large family and social fabric which will come to the support of my family. And that's the reason we do not do financial planning very accurately. And financial planning as a concept does not exist more often than not. Now it is changing, and with young people taking charge, I think that should change even further. But these are four reasons. Fifth being the onto your question of about term insurance. When actually LIC started, and this goes back a little bit. When in any of the protection term is called as total protection product. In any of the protection product, the basis of protection product is event happening and not happening, and because of there were no returns, we look at insurance from a perspective of return for wealth building. We still do not we still have some way to go before we can have those strong conversations within our families of saying, if I am not available, what will you do? So term does not offer returns per se, a pure term product. And that is the reason why a lot of people feel, oh, nothing was to happen to me any which way, so why to pay for so long, which is incorrect. But having said that, I would say that it is changing. Today, term contributes to almost about 10% of the overall insurance sales portfolio. A lot of digital action has worked onto it to change that. And second, I would say it is also happening because of our changing heterogeneity of work profile. So you are looking at the age group of less than 30 coming into work, and which are much more. I think these are the new age managers who are much more open to have these conversations. They also look at planning their life a little better. than us who are like 40s or 50s, and these are typically people who are opting for these products. So I don't foresee it remaining the same way long for long. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Very, very interesting take. Never,
Thank you.
never thought of it that way. Okay, thank you, sir. And one question we have from Vaibhavi Patil. Vaibhavi, you there?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
You are. Go ahead, dear.
I'm Vaibhavi Bhosle Patil from Indira Institute of Management, Pune, MBA batch. So my question is, the insurance industry boasts new trends and developments quite frequently. So how do you manage to stay on top of these changes? And is there any point of difference why people should stick to your company and not opt for the companies dominating the market?
Okay. Very. I would say it is. I wasn't expecting that tough a question to come in. I would try and answer it. I would answer the second part first. The reason why, or I would probably look at it this way: the one of the reasons why we are able to change very frequently is we are small and we are very nimble. Being small and nimble gives, while has could have multiple other challenges, but it helps you change very frequently and very easily. So we are able to take those calls, which probably if I was like uh, 10 times larger than what I am today, would I would have thought about it. So, and also we attract a lot of talent. And I think the management philosophy at Future generally is all about there is not know. Let's learn it. That learning agility keeps us on our, I think, very close to customer, and that certainly helps us move faster than others. And to answer your second question, why should young talent look at Future generally? Is probably for these reasons. This is a place where you get heard. This is a place where you are given charge to create, and this is a place where you are interested to own. And when you do these three, I believe when you do these three things to anybody, I think people like that. People do not mind doing hard work as long as they are being taken care of. They are assured for their well-being, and their contribution is recognized. And I think these three things are in the DNA of Future. We have something called as ACE, which is ACE with Future generally as a philosophy. I would invite all of you to please go through the website and our social channels. Have a look at that.
Sure.
Things like, for example, we during the pandemic we started something like Masters Speak, where almost every month or twice in a month we get the best of these speakers to come from the world. We have had people like uh, Sir Michael, we have had David Acker, we have had Eric Himmler, Neil Ayal to come to and speak to our young talent as well as to our customers and prospects only about how should they manage their business. So these things, I think, being nimble-footed, being agile, and keeping your ears close to ground has helped us attract talent and keep them intact. And that's why I think people should choose us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, although we are running short of time, but since Rahul raised his hand right in the beginning of session, if you could just take his question, which he has posted in the chat box. He's asking, businesses are shifting gears and have equipped themselves with work from home practices. Sir, do you think it will impact work culture and innovations in insurance sector? And how we can make career in life insurance in such competitive environment?
Okay, I would say that it's about work. Location of work is something which is immaterial. So irrespective of whether it is work from home or work from office, it remains about work. Innovation. I personally do not believe that there is anything which could stop if organizations have to survive. If you are closer to your customer, you would be, and if you are open to listen to their feedback, I think innovation is just a byproduct of listening to your customers and being agile to think about how you can solve it. So work from home shouldn't be a reason of any of those. it does not stand as a factor to your innovation or to your growth. To your second question, that how should organizations look at charting their growth factor in the current, I would again go back and sorry for me repeating myself again and again about customers. I am a marketer. I lead marketing, and I stand as a charter. I hold the charter for customer very close. So hence, in anything which we will do, customer would fall at the center of it, and hence I would keep repeating myself around it, and all my answers would probably be woven around it. As a to my mind, I think if you are doing right things for the customers and for your employees, for your channel partners, growth will happen sooner or later. Nobody can stop it. I mean, it could take a while to for you to catch up to the market. It could take for a while for you to kind of build up those PBT numbers, couple of percentage here and there, but it will be sustainable. You would be much more loved and adored by your own workforce and your own customers. And in long term, over a period of time, I think it will even out. So I would say that look after your customer, look after your employees, look after your overall stakeholders, and that's and innovation and growth then would just be around the corner for you if you are listening to them closely.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for answering all the questions with utmost patience and honesty. It was lovely having you. And as I said, what an informative and insightful session it was. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here. In case anybody has any further questions, you got my handle. You can hook up to me over LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to help in any case I can. Yeah. And thanks, Mr. Sate, for having me. Thank Ms. Sate. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really informative. Thank you for taking all the questions also. Love to see you on campus soon, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, ma'am.
You,
Thank you.
On that note, let us move on to listen to thoughts of our next speaker. Before that, let me have the honor and pleasure to introduce ma'am to you. Our next speaker is Ms. Dipali Nair, Chief Marketing Officer for IBM in India and South Asia. Ma'am has over 2 decades of experience in sales, marketing, and e-commerce. Ma'am has held leadership positions with HSBC, L&T Insurance, and Mahindra Holidays, and has also worked at Marico to manage brands like Saffola and Medica. Her work is so extensive that she has won many awards over the years. Some of her recent accomplishments are: she has been on the Impact list of India's 50 most influential women 3 years in a row. Can you believe that? On the IAMAI's CMO Super 30 list in 2019 and 2020. She has also been awarded Economic Times Tech CMO of the Year honor in 2020. And in 2021, she has been featured in Impact's Digital Power 100 Marketing Leaders 2020 and Business World's Top 50 Marketers list. This list is so huge, ma'am. In her spare time, she is a podcast host of a best-selling show on Avaz. It's called Being CEO with Dipali Nair. Do listen in. All 22 episodes are wonderful listening conversations. She's a big influencer on social media with 7,000 plus followers on Twitter and about 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. What a huge honor to have you with us, ma'am. Joining her is Mr. Sachin Nambia, who is a member of IBM's marketing team focusing on events and campaigns. Prior to this, Sir worked as a manager at Internet and Mobile Association of India. He has been the recipient of IBM Global CMO Marketing Award for the Indian South Asia market. He is an auto enthusiast and loves to spend time with his cars. The Pali ma'am session is going to be an interactive one. Ma'am's topic is 3 A's of modern marketing tools and technology. Ma'am could not join us for the morning awards ceremony. Congratulations, ma'am, for having won Marketing Excellence Indira Brand Slam 2021 award and for adding one more to the long list that you already have.
Thank you very much. It's right here, so I should show it to you guys. I know I'm not supposed to move with your virtual background, but I think
we can see it, ma'am.
Congratulations, ma'am.
One more beautiful addition to your, trophy shelf.
Thank you.
Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you, Madhuri.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're looking lovely, ma'am.
Thank you, Shikha. That will always get you a big thank you and a big smile.
So true.
So I'm very glad to be here, and Sachin and I have worked out a interesting interactive session. Sachin, are you there? I can't. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yes, we can see you and we can hear you. Lovely. Thank you.
Welcome, Sachin. Also, thank you so much for Sachin for joining in today.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a pleasure talking to you yesterday and getting this coordinated.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Shikha, shall we begin?
Sure, ma'am. Over to you.
Okay. So what we've done is that I involved Sachin because I said, in a virtual frame, when you invite me to speak for 20 or 30 minutes, it's rather tough to just carry on. And also, if you put on the slides, then it is, very difficult to focus on the person who's speaking. So Sachin is going to interrupt me a couple of times to get some good answers out of me, hopefully. And he's also going to keep me honest because he will not let me say what I don't normally believe or do in my normal life. Okay. So Sachin, over to you.
Thank you, Dipali. Always a pleasure interacting with you. So let me just kickstart. So since we have only 30 minutes. So I know that you have devised a framework for modern marketing, which applies not only to an organization, but also applies for personal branding, right? So would you like to take us through that once?
Yeah, thank you. So Sachin, I don't know if we have a slide that we'll put on later on, but so the 3 A's that we're talking about here are authenticity, agility, and ability. And let me explain a little bit of what we mean by that. Okay. If you look at any marketing organization, if you look at any brand, if you look at any organization per se also, what becomes very relevant for today and has especially been proven in 2020 is that the brand or the organization or the marketing team is extremely authentic. By the way, that stands true for personal brand also. What does authenticity mean? I will explain this in brief. Authenticity really means that you have a purpose, you have a mission, you're true to your core, you come across as a person who's real. In short, it essentially means that. But I think the other 2 A's are very interesting, and authenticity is something that most people will say, yeah, we kind of know that, but when you talk about ability, I think that is where the learning part of a brand, organization, or a marketing team comes in. You have to continue to delight your customer. If you're an organization, you have to continue to add new tools, equipment, skills as a marketer if you're a marketing organization. And as a personal brand also, you need to continue to learn new things and add on abilities to the ones that you have currently. So that's really, in short, the ability part of it, the knowledge part of it, if you may call it, or new skills part of it, or new tools and equipment part of it, or digital transformation part of it, or delighting customer experience part of it. So that really comes in ability. And then the agility. While I know that we normally use the term agility for movement, we use the term agility for fast or for speed, but I think agility in this context is about not just the speed or ability to pivot, it's also about how much ease you have in pivoting. And I think this is one thing that we all need to judge ourselves for. If an organization takes enormous amount of effort to be agile, then you are not truly agile. If you as a person, find it difficult to move or pivot or learn new things or be agile, then you're truly not in that mode. And I think that's the question one needs to ask ourselves, that are we truly agile or not? So this really, if we keep true to these 3 A's, I think will make for a successful organization, marketing team, brand, or a personal brand in future. Sachin, over to you.
Great. Your personal brand, I'll come to that later, but let's tackle these 3 A's one by one. So
Sure.
authenticity, right? The first one. But what does that mean in an organization? Do we go with the literal meaning of the word, or is it something different?
Let me explain further. I think, well, let me give an example of what happened in 2020, right? We all know that, or, I know Ashish was speaking earlier on, and, Future Generali, he heads digital marketing over there, and Ashish is a good friend, right? Now, what happens about a brand is that your normal context of advertising, your normal context of brand building, all that changed, right? This was a crisis period when people needed to see even more of what you as a brand can do and stand for. We did that at IBM. I think we probably didn't go to our clients to sell them more or cross sell or upsell, but we went to our clients and said, okay, how can we help you help your customers, right? A lot of our clients were in the B2B domain, so a lot of our clients are serving B2C customers. So financial services organizations, telcos, that services that you all take for granted, they're our clients. Their services were working because IBMers, were the first ones out, got special permission from the government to be out during COVID, were part of their business contingency plans, were housed away from their families, away from safety, so to speak, for 14 days, 20 days at a stretch, to ensure that everybody received the telecom services from the telecom clients that we have, or that your banking worked. Somebody has to ultimately, there is a human intervention required for digital payments. There is a human intervention required ultimately for NEFT to work, and so on and so forth, right? And who makes these run? So, that's where the authenticity of the brand IBM, came through to all our clients, to where it matters. We have a client who wanted to, they have some 27,000 outlets. I'm not naming them just now. They have 27,000 outlets across the country. And they came to us and they said, within 2 or 3 weeks, can you make our app relevant for the migrant people? Because we're also going to serve free meals at our outlets, and to deliver that within the 2-3 weeks. Now, that's where the brand becomes authentic. When IBM says internally to our team members that we are essential, or that, we are smart, or that we are technology oriented, and all the things that we think about IBM come to life when this happens for our clients, and they're extremely delighted. Similarly, for a brand such as Future Generali, I don't think 2020 was a period where you went out and spoke about what the brand stands for in the insurance context. Ashish, I just heard him talk about the fact that they have a series called Masters Speak, and they really made it big, in terms of knowledge and value addition, to the clients. The third thing that happened, a lot of the brands, CXOs and CEOs, were available for the end consumer to talk to. We had a new CEO taking over, Arvind Krishna, and his first letter internally that he wrote to the employees, he also put out on LinkedIn. Now, that kind of authenticity, I think, really comes to the fore. I've always seen that with Richard Branson, of course, but I think in the last few years, the fact that there is a CEO who's available on Twitter, Anand Mahindra, in that context, how he interacts with people, and it's not just a one-way, street in that sense. These are all examples of authentic leaders, and therefore organizations, and authentic brands that they stand for. And the human part of the brand therefore really comes through. And therefore, for a brand, if you have a purpose or a mission, that's what I mean when I say that authenticity will really matter, and authenticity should be done, and that you must make every effort to stand true to the statement that you make, to your employees, or to the external world at large.
That was a good example, Dipali, something which I think everybody can connect to. The period that we're still in there, but the period that we just passed through, the COVID period, and how brands were true to their brand name and their commitment. That was really a good example.
I want to give one more example. Another brand that is, again, the CMO is a very dear friend, is HDFC Bank. They did something very interesting. They put their logo out on the floors for the social distancing bit to be maintained. Very creative, very interesting. And I know that as a marketer, it's a very tough decision to say that somebody's going to step on your logo, and you're doing this. But I thought what they did was very courageous and very interesting, and stands true for the HDFC Bank's trust and service, and the new age bank that they are in India. Sorry, Sachin, I know I finished with the next.
That was a superb example. I know it's actually a case study for us also.
Yeah.
Marketing is still there in the corporates. A brilliant case study. Coming to the second A, which is agility, right? What does it mean what is the difference between agility for a person versus agility for an organization? How is it different?
Actually, there's no difference. It means the same thing, but yes, I mean, in practice, it means doing different things. So let me start by being agile with a person. Okay. And let me take my own example. I moved from being the CMO of a financial services organization to a technology company, right? I could have taken 1 year to adjust, but life in reality doesn't offer you that kind of time, right? I have to land running today, which meant that I needed to look at the frameworks that I've learned all my life and apply them to, IBM in terms of marketing, in terms of new things, in terms of culturally getting, the team right, the soft skills that you require as a leader, those. So the functional aspects of it and the soft skills part of it, right? I needed to make things better or continue to run the things that they were running in a short, framework. So that's the speed part of the agility. But how comfortable was I with it? Did I come home every day and say, "Oh my God," or did I come home every day and say, "Wow, what a fantastic opportunity," right? So that mindset is what I refer to when I say the ease with which you can pivot, right? So I pivoted from financial services to being the CMO of a technology company, but the ease with which I did. Now let's look at an organization. We've heard of stories where restaurants, who were not delivering earlier, trained their staff, the waiters, to be delivery boys, right? They needed to pivot to survive, right? Some of them pivoted very quickly and some of them did not, okay? Even the ones who pivoted quickly, how easy it was for them to motivate their employees. How easy was it for them to call on to the trust that the employees have on the brand to say that, yes, we will do it, So brands such as, I've heard stories, from Uber of some of the new things that they did. We've heard of the restaurants. But let's look at very large organizations. Okay, Wildcraft is a brand. They were the first ones to move into making the masks, etc. And eventually everybody else, tried doing it, right? So two things in agility. One is the speed, how quickly you can move. And second is how much ease with which you move, the less painful part of it. Do you have a team who's continuously learning, therefore, and can move and is open to new things and can deal with the future ambiguity? Or do you have a situation where you as an organization, for you to pivot means getting rid of the people with old skill sets and hiring new people? And that obviously is going to be slow. And that means that you're not agile, actually. Now, the third example, let's come to a marketing organization, a CMO's team, right? Now, a CMO's team also similarly, how quick they are in getting into, new forms of digital media marketing or new forms of marketing technology aspects, with what ease they move is going to be, extremely relevant. And the fourth, which is the brand, just like it applies to personal brand, it's also about the brand. How quickly, how easy is it for a brand, to start talking, let's say Nike is a brand, right? And Nike is a brand over the years, I think has been a very, agile brand in that sense. How much ease with which they've moved into from shoes to apparel to now those measuring instruments, and move into diversity and inclusion. They're the ones who are talking a lot about women athletes and things like those, right? So that's what I also mean by agility. It applies a little bit more to organizations and marketing organizations, and which is what impacts the brand. See, if a marketing organization is not agile and doesn't move very quickly and with ease into the newer forms of delighting customer experience, then the brand obviously cannot move. It's very interlinked. Hopefully, Sachin, I think I've explained with these examples what I mean by agility.
You did. So the two takeaways here is, one is speed, the speed which you can pivot, and the ease of pivoting is something which need to take care of.
A friend of mine gives a very beautiful example. She says, take the dance of a ballerina. Okay, a ballerina moves from one pose to the other, right? The smoothness, the ease with which they move from one pose to the other, is about the ease of pivoting. Everybody can move from one pose to the other, right? Most young ballerinas can, but the ones who become the great ballerinas are the ones who do this very smoothly. So that's another example.
And the one point which I noted from a personal front is, you need to have the right attitude too, right? The example that you gave me, once I'm back home, am I dreading that, oh, what a day it was, or I was happy or excited that I learned something new, then I could pivot to something new, right? So right
Absolutely.
on a
It is about the right attitude. It is about the right mindset. But it is also about the fact that over the years, have you been open to pivoting and pivoting to new things and open to learning and learning new things? Somebody who's done it many times over will find, I don't know which comes first, chicken and an egg, right? Attitude or experience. Okay.
I know you always preach of continuous learning, so I know where it's coming from. Moving on to the third A, which is ability, right? What is the context of this in marketing?
Okay. So this is the favorite one from my perspective. If I really look at when you are an MBA student, when I was an MBA student, I find that in marketing, we only actually learn marketing history. If I am being irreverent today, I actually feel like saying that the marketing textbooks should be called marketing history textbooks. Because ultimately, at the bottom of all of it, every tactic that you've seen, every ad that you've seen, everything that you've seen, you're then told that you've got to do it new. It's not like you can copy paste. Okay. It's not like accounting, the same principle stays, right? You've got to do things new in marketing. So that's where the ability part, comes in. The most important part on the ability, once you start working, once you stop being a student, is the fact that what is the role you play inside an organization, and that is the ability part of it. So if I look back 27 years ago when I started working, and especially when I was, in FMCG, when I used to work for Marico, the whole marketing communications domain is what I think was actually called marketing so much. Even if I did pricing and packaging, I still think it is far more about brand and communications in that domain. It's only when you move to the service industry and with digital really taking off is when marketing has started actually working in the ROI domain, where we are actually proving where are dollars going, what sales are coming because of that, and the performance marketing discipline has come in, right? What's going to be the role of the marketing in future, therefore? Maybe not the same for every organization. So there's a huge distinction now, right? Earlier, 15 years ago, whether you work for an FMCG brand or a service brand, in fact, in the service industry, you played a little lesser role, if I may, call it, because you were still looking after brand and communications and you weren't really in control of pricing at all, which you do in FMCG. But today, the world's changed completely because you're playing such a strong role in getting business for the organization. So therefore you have the opportunity of impacting pricing, you have definitely the opportunity of impacting the customer experience from even before they come into the brand till the end, and retention is also under marketing. So it's a very different ball game altogether, is the way, let me put it. And still not very well taught at MBA institutes, I must say so, because I think it's a discipline that is taking off every 6 months. Things are changing over there. Okay. and therefore there are not that many marketing history examples, of this whole new discipline, which I call performance marketing. Now, let me look at the future. I think in the future, this role of marketing is going to take over the traditional role. Because I think the way we look at brand on social media, brands that consumers speak about, the consumer advocacy, the whole ecosystem in which the brand is operating. I mean, there are huge, I mean, we can write a thesis on that whole thing will change. Now, when that changes, marketing, again, the CMO and the organization will need to play the role genuinely, I think, of the unifier inside an organization, who goes and talks about the pricing and the experience before the buy, experience during the buy, concepts such as customer lifetime value, and things, retention, loyalty, all those are becoming very strong marketing domains. UX, CX, all those will become very, very important. So just remember this bit, that marketing will have to play the role of a unifier inside an organization. And the sooner we figure that out, I think the better seat marketing will have on the table. So that's one part of the ability, right? The second part of the ability is what is happening in the whole marketing technology domain, which we call MarTech. Okay. So today, I don't know, Sachin, you will remember that we did the numbers together sometime back, right? How many thousand MarTech solutions are available in the market? Some 80,000 plus or something like that? Yeah. So there are 80,000 plus marketing technology solutions available in the market. And Gartner also tells us that 1/3 of the CMO's budget is being used to actually buy these MarTech solutions. Now that tells you that there is huge change happening. Okay. And the MarTech solutions, once again, just remember this, they're not so applicable to the FMCG and traditional marketing. They're far more applicable to this whole performance marketing domain that we're talking about. So for example, this whole, you go to Amazon and the whole suggestion that you get, right? The suggestion engine, right? Or that, if you search for an anklet on Google, then, when you are on your Yahoo email, all the banners that you will get to see are of anklets and jewelry, right? Or that you can instinctively know that everything that is happening to you in the digital domain, people know that, you're a woman or a man, that much little you can make out, right? Or that when you're doing some things on an app, you will not get to see certain offers because, you are not tagged as a mother of a, teenage, boy. Or that somewhere they know that I'm the mother of a teenage boy, so I don't get to see Pampers ads ever, So these are the things that are happening around you, which you won't even realize. So today, for example, if you guys have to actually start sitting and saying, I want to understand what competition is doing for certain brands, you will not be able to know because you will go into the same app and the same, web screen, and you will not get to see what they're doing for lots and lots of their brands, right? Or lots and lots of their customers, right? So whole segmentation of one has come in, and that all is possible on account of the marketing technology tools, in real time. The usage of AI and, in confluence with the MarTech tools. Now that learning is not just about physical learning for one person. It is about changing the ecosystem, the kind of agencies you work with, buying of those tools, reorganizing the marketing team to ensure that we do this and learn this. And each individual also, from a personal brand perspective, if you're in marketing, then, getting familiar with numbers, knowing analytics, all that becomes part of this whole, ability conundrum that I'm talking about. But in short, I will summarize once again. So one is the softer aspect of ability, which is the role that marketing plays inside an organization. Be very conscious of that. And that is changing in itself, okay, on the softer side. And the ability on the MarTech side, the change that is happening, is phenomenal and difficult to learn and difficult to put in a textbook. For example, I've been asked by a publisher to write a book on digital marketing, and this is what I told him. I said, it will take me probably 8 to 12 months. I'm not a professional book author, right? It will take me probably 8 to 12 months to finish writing a book. By the time I finish writing it, everything that I've written, chances are that it's irrelevant. So, that's the challenge we kind of, live with. So, for example, today, if you're studying the subject of search engine optimization, okay, and you actually do a course and everything, and you figure it out. Nobody is preparing you today for the voice-based search engine optimization, right? And that's going to really come into play, according to me, in the next 9 to 12 months. Right? So that is what I call, in terms of MarTech ability, that we need to be very agile to learn and get familiar with. Yeah, Sachin, I think I've taken too long. I don't know how we're doing on time.
You've taken too long, but that was a good answer with good examples. I think people, students over here would have loved it. Considering the time, I'll just straight away jump to my last question here now. You have been in the industry for 25 years. So this is something which I have to ask you for the sake of the students. Classic marketing versus digital marketing. When you were in your younger days, there was no digital marketing. And since you also teach in a lot of institutes, you've seen the textbooks, right? They mainly focus on unique selling proposition, brand insights, etc. But wherever you nowadays, if you read on digital or if you hear any marketer speak about, they speak about personalization, ROI, lifetime value. So I just want to understand the importance of brand has reduced, and earlier it was the marketers would focus only on the brands, but now they are focusing more on what the customer needs or customer experience, right? So I just want to understand your take on it.
Okay, so okay, that's a tough one. I mean, if I say the importance of brand has reduced, I will have some 200 people coming and beating me up. So I can't say that the importance of brand has reduced, but I think how you deliver the brand has changed considerably. Let me just give one example, and I will not get into the details because this is, I think, a topic for a thesis in itself. That I think if you pick up the Kotler, I think it still talks about segmentation, targeting, and then positioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it means that you segment the market and you pick up the best segment possible, and then you find an insight that applies to that segment, and then you do the positioning, or maybe there are 2 or 3 segments only, right? I think that's what you need to leave aside. You need to now look at the same example that I gave you, Amazon one. Okay, let's look at Netflix. Netflix doesn't look at segmentation and say, okay, Dipali is a working woman based in India, and therefore she's one segment, and there are the housewife in India, that's a second segment, and then there are the girls who are the students, and that's a third segment. That's not what Netflix does, right? What it does is, it looks at me as a segment, but it also takes into account all the consumption and browsing that I've done on the Netflix app, okay? And then it says, I'm launching this new program. And that program probably has 300 different banners, to promote it. And they figured out that Dipali likes, let's say, women protagonists. She also likes, legal dramas. Okay. And they will probably try and find a banner which serves these 2 domains to give me a banner to promote this new series, right? Whereas they figured out that Sachin, he's an auto enthusiast, okay? And I don't know whether he likes legal dramas or not, but let's say he likes crime thrillers, right? So then they will pick up a banner from that genre to interest him. And they would have done 300 segments, and they're not making a priority or a choice out of segments. They're trying to serve everybody in real time. Now, that's how a brand is getting served. In the classical marketing domain, somebody would have looked at those 300 banners and said, oh, we don't stand for one thing. We are 300 different things. And, is it not going to be schizophrenic for people? But no, it isn't going to be, because in the earlier times, it was the same newspaper or the same TV where we saw 5 different ads and they would confuse us. But today, I don't get to see what Sachin sees. So therefore, the brand is important, but how the brand's getting served and how it's reaching the consumer and which consumer, I think it's a bit of the only thing that I can come close to is if you've seen the movie Matrix, Keanu Reeves, it's a different world.
Superb, Dipali. Superb example on Netflix here. We just have 5 minutes left, Shika. So I think we'll take up some questions now.
Yeah.
Yes, Sachin. Thank you so much. But before I let you both know what the questions are, Dipali ma'am, at so many occasions, I felt like getting up from my chair and applauding. And, such great insights, especially for our marketing students, which is the larger chunk that we have. And
Do you rehearse these lines, or do you
no,
say
I don't.
every speaker?
No, I don't. You were so good that, these come naturally, ma'am. And, the authenticity, agility, and ability, these three words, I'm glad, Sachin sir, you asked her to explain, all three of them in detail. She gave, not just the organizational perspective of these words, but also the personal perspective of these words. And then at one point in time, ma'am, you said, you must make all efforts to stay true to what you have said. You giving the personal perspective of these three words, plus you saying a statement like this, it's a great reflection of your very strong value system. And that's why I said, what an honor to have you. And then you sir ask you questions and you explain them in a very, very simplified manner. The complex concepts were simplified by making use of example. You talk about Future Generali, HDFC, restaurants, Wildcraft, CMO's team, Nike, Amazon, and lastly the Netflix one was mind-blowing. So a pleasure, absolute pleasure. I was completely intrigued by each and every word that you were speaking. And thank you, Sachin sir, for handling the session so beautifully. And even the format in itself was very engaging. So with your permission, ma'am, there are questions that students have mailed to us.
Really an amazing session. I think we need to applaud the session.
Absolutely.
It was absolutely fantastic, Dipali. It was too good.
Thank you, Madhuri. I appreciate you telling me that. I really appreciate. And the applause goes to Sachin too, because
Absolutely. And very well, he asked the right questions which the students could actually understand, and you answered so beautifully. So just makes us hungry for more, and we hope that someday you will come to our campus and have a nice session.
Let's all first get COVID free.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just
fingers crossed, ma'am. Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.
So Shikha, back to you. I know that you blocked my time. 4 o'clock. I can be here for another 5 or 10 minutes if you wish, because I know we started late. But I leave it to you because you might want to get back to your schedule.
We'll try to cover as many questions as possible, ma'am. So I'll call out the name of the student, and the students would be unmuted, and he or she will ask you question directly. So Kaustubh Deo is our first student. Kaustubh, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Hello, ma'am. My name is Kaustubh Dev, and I am from Indira Institute of Management, PGDM. So a few days back, I read a news that Siemens, IBM, Red Hat launched a hybrid cloud initiative to increase real-time value of industrial IoT data. So my question is, I want to understand, from this launch, what IBM is hoping, and the second one is, will it affect IBM's competitors?
Okay. So in the world of technology, first of all, I think there is a shift happening. The era first was of cloud, and today it is of hybrid cloud. If I look at the world's enterprises, 80% of the workloads, have still not moved to cloud. And that's because the choices that a client makes are whether they ought to use public cloud, whether they ought to use cloud or on-prem, or whether they ought to have private cloud, or whether they ought to use all three. Okay. So when they were making the choices earlier, a lot of the companies, the new age companies, decided to go for public cloud, and the old age companies continue to do it on-prem. Right? In the last 1.5 years, IBM's actually taken a pioneering, I would say, route to say hybrid cloud is the way, that the customers ought to have a choice, of what they want to do, or if they want to do a mix of three. And IBM can offer all three, or offer a hybrid, and we perhaps are the experts at all of it. And then the second issue that comes in which is that it needs to be all on open technology, which means that in the future, you don't want to tie in your customers, right? So the open part of it comes from, Red Hat. And, Red Hat is now actually an IBM company. In this context now, we are doing different tie-ups and different go-to-markets with lots of organizations. We've also done one with Schlumberger, okay? Just like the one that you're asking. where we are setting up two things. One is not just create an example for Schlumberger, but create an ecosystem style where what we've done for Schlumberger, with their help, we take it to various other companies who are in similar state or similar industry, where they can quickly, move, to cloud. Okay, I've oversimplified this, Kaustubh, for the sake of every student who's here who may not come from engineering background, but that is the context. I think in the world of technology, it is not about. It's not like, in the good old brands saying, what? Meri kameez, teri kameez se safed kaise, or something like that. It doesn't work like that. I think in the world of technology, partnerships work. Okay. In the world of technology, they're very long-term relationships. Uh, in some places, we may be some part of my business at IBM may be competing with another brand. Somewhere else, we may be partnering each other. Okay, so the world of technology also works like that, right? So I've answered two of your questions. You asked me first one, so I explained the whole hybrid cloud thing to you. And the second, you said, does it offer any benefit versus the other brands? We are hoping that when the end clients see that IBM is able to cover everything, then we are the choice of the technology partner that they have.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Sachin, you want to add anything there?
No, I think you covered most of it. I wouldn't be able to simplify this like you did.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Shikha, next question is from
Next is from Anjana, ma'am. Anjana, you there?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, Dipali, ma'am. I am Anjana from ISBS MBA. Thank you so much for the insightful session. Ma'am, as you all know that machine learning and AI have been changing the way marketers approach their consumers. So my question to you is, what were the core pain points IBM had in mind before rolling out IBM Watson?
Okay, the two questions are not related to each other at all, Anjana, because I'm not sure if you know, but so the AI Watson was rolled out in terms of AI application to different things, not just to marketing. Okay. There is AI that you use in supply chain. There is AI that you would use for marketing. There's AI that you would use in insurance, for insurance issuance. And I mean, there's no domain where AI is not applicable. Okay. Even the example that I gave you of Netflix, if they were to do it in speed and in real time, they would be able to use an AI engine for serving these new customers with the new banners. Okay. And in a programmatic fashion, AI could create new banners also. Okay, but that's a world of the future. That's one. The number two thing I want to tell you is that so Watson does have different industry applications, but Watson used to have what we used to call a marketing suite. IBM sold that business, and it's called acoustics now. Okay, so just all the marketing applications built on AI is a business that we hived off. Sold is not the right word. We hived it off, and that's a separate company in itself now, called acoustic. So I don't think the question that you asked me of ML and AI application in marketing was in any case the reason for them to launch Watson. I think Watson came first and the marketing applications came later. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thanks. Thanks, ma'am. And the last one is from Alka Kumari. Alka, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am, and thank you, ma'am, for such wonderful insight. My name is Alka Kumari from Indira Institute of Management, MBA batch. And my question to you is that, ma'am, with COVID, we are at war against an invisible and persistent enemy that continues to plague us. And it might happen that in future also we may face another enemy like this. So how should a company prepare itself to exist and thrive in this kind of surrounding?
Be authentic, be agile, and have the ability for future. Add ability for future. I think, Alka, I want to go back and say that, but I think the most important thing in all this is going to be the agility, the ability to pivot, because we can't predict what is it that's going to plague us in future. You look back and you reflect and you say, it sounds like science fiction, right? You've seen those Hollywood movies that there is something coming at Earth and those scientists go and, go and take care of it, or, there is some volcano which is, going to now just, decimate life from Earth. Now, can you imagine what a virus did? I don't even know how small it is, okay? So put the whole mankind to a halt, one, but also put the whole mankind together, in trying to solve the problem, right? So there is that, again, that movie Black Men or something, where the whole world comes together to take care of the alien attack, right? So it sounds like science fiction to me, and I can't predict, what is the problem that we're going to face in future. But I think if organizations and mankind need to survive, then I think the ability to pivot is going to be probably the most important, and the speed of pivot is going to be, very, very important.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for answering that. Okay, this one is definitely the last, ma'am. Dharmendra Bari wants to know how IBM is contributing for rural India development.
It's a great question, and thank you very much for asking that question. Before I give two examples to illustrate what we are doing at IBM for rural India's development, Sachin has, put down my podcast link. I think the 23rd episode is going to go up, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek. I think this week I'm recording with the Uber, head of India. So that's going to come up. That's going to be the 24th or the 25th episode. Okay, so do listen in, please. And I'd love your feedback. And I am very active on Twitter, and I know most students are not. For some reason, most students are on Instagram. But Sachin, you post my handle, because my handle is the same on Instagram and Twitter. I'd love to hear from you guys, feedback on the podcast. When we're talking about skills and this whole soft area that I was talking about, I think it's going to be one of the most interesting things that you hear. I'm getting great feedback from most other MBA institutes who are inviting me to talk about the podcast alone. And I'm doing sessions over there and telling a lot of backstories of me meeting with the CEOs, which is very interesting for most of you to listen. Now, to come back to the question on what IBM is doing for rural India, there are two initiatives that I want to talk about. One is the what I call the CSR initiative that we do. IBM is committed to education, STEM education, at a high school level across the world, and so much in India also. We have a lot of missions which we are driving at high school level with state governments. I forget the number just now, but we have a tie-up, I think, with 12 to 15 or 12 to 16 state governments, where we are facilitating STEM education in schools, because we sincerely believe that that's going to actually, make the world a better place. There are lots of things that we're doing with the government which may not be considered in the rural domain, so I won't mention them. But example, there is, there's something that we do with the Niti Aayog, where IBMers dedicate their time in terms of, once again, encouraging school and college children and things like those. But that's not necessarily rural. Okay. The state government one also applies to both urban and rural. It's a state government's choice, but we're trying to obviously go to government-run choices. So therefore, you are going to rural, plus you're also going to the lower socioeconomic strata. Okay, so that's the work that we do. The second work and the difference that we are making is in partnering organizations who operate in rural India. Sachin, you will have to remind me the example that we have on CNN.com. The company's name has slipped my mind, where they're offering healthcare in the rural domain, in the cardiology thing, which is being powered by our AI solution. The names just slip my mind. So, there is what, yeah. iCure, sorry, iCure is the name, IKURE. Okay, so the second is that kind of work. Then I want to give you examples of what we do in some of the other countries. A commitment to, whether you call it rural or lower socioeconomic strata, I'll try and put it together. So in African nations, for example, one of the African nations, we've done work in the IoT domain to reach water to the how should I say, they're not, I won't call them rural, but like faraway places where water is not available, in terms of detecting water. In UK, one of our UK very senior leaders started this work of using both AI and maybe even blockchain for working in the area against human trafficking. Okay, so we're actually therefore trying to solve world problems. That's the way I would look at it. And I think I would love for you to read up that if you look at the whole mission of finding the vaccine, I think technology has played a huge role in the ability for doing, experimentation. So I think we just concluded a roundtable on economic times, and if you were to figure this out, why does a vaccine, take longer to produce? It takes longer to produce because you've got to run an experiment. It didn't work, then another one. It didn't work, then another one, right? Those were physical experiments. Now, with the help of AI, you're actually able to virtually run an experiment and see whether it's working or not. So therefore, many more simultaneous experiments are possible, and you're abandoning the ones which look like completely impossible is happening faster. Once again, I'm doing oversimplification and explaining it, but I just wanted to give this example that when somebody asks me about rural India, and I get it, but I think when we say rural India, all of us really mean that, are you benefiting society? Are you benefiting, the lower socioeconomic strata? Or what are we doing for the upliftment of, mankind or nature? So I hope I've kind of answered your question.
You indeed have. Thank you so much, Dipali ma'am. We enjoyed every minute of your session. Thank you, Sachin sir, for contributing to make it as effective as it was. And yes, ma'am, I'll say one more time, absolute honor to have host you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Shikha. You're doing a great job of being
Thanks,
a very, very enthusiastic MC. God bless you. And Madhuri, thank you once again for the award and for inviting me here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for gracing the occasion.
I just wanted to say a special thank you to Karan, who's been coordinating with me. So do give my regards to him.
Always. I know we forget to thank the people behind the scenes sometimes. So 3 cheers for Karan.
3 cheers for Karan.
I will convey it to him.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Okay, so now we have, after this amazing session, let's move on to another amazing session. Next, we have Ms. Anuja Mishra, Vice President and Head of Marketing for Personal Care and Hygiene, Godrej Consumers Product Limited. Ma'am has a vast experience of about 16 years in the space of brand development, category creation, and P&L management across global FMCG blue chip companies like PepsiCo and Nestle, and more recently with Indian FMCG major GCPL. Ma'am joined GCPL, Godrej Consumer Product Limited, in December 2019. In a short span of time, she has led the strategic intervention of expanding the hygiene category in the midst of COVID-19 disruptions. Ma'am also leads GCPL's power brands like Synthol and Godrej No. 1. She has been instrumental in accelerating greater awareness for hygiene through the brand campaigns and CSR interventions, while anchoring the brands on a strong purpose that's intended to mirror and inspire the communities and society at large. Prior to GCPL, ma'am has worked with PepsiCo for over a decade, where she has led core categories and innovation portfolios across the food and beverage business. She has steered iconic brands such as 7-Up, Mirinda, Aquafina, Lay's, Uncle Chips, and Cheetos. She has also led successful innovations like Lay's Max, Sting Energy Drink, and Aquafina Vitamin Splash at PepsiCo. On 7-Up, ma'am brought back the iconic Fido Dido that generation of 19s had grown up admiring. Ma'am, I still remember having a poster of it in my study room. She's a fitness enthusiast, having run several full and half marathons, as well as a student of kickboxing and karate. She also dabbles into music and creative writing to unwind. She's a die-hard optimist and a go-getter. Today, ma'am will be speaking to us on the topic, is innovation critical for evolving marketing strategies post-19? I would like to mention that ma'am could not join us in morning for the award ceremony. Congratulations, ma'am.
I did join.
Having won the marketing. You were able to join. Okay, my bad. Over to you, ma'am. So looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Firstly, let me, once again, thank the Indira Group of Institutes for, the felicitation and for having me here. I'm really excited about, this session. to be, talking to students. I think to go back to B school, to go back to colleges is very exciting, because I think it somewhere sparks a little bit of my, my younger side, I guess. Thanks, Madhuri ma'am, for a very exciting topic. What I'm going to try and do is that over the next about 20 to 25 minutes, I'll share purely my perspective, basis my experiences on how COVID-19 has forced us, and I think us as a tribe, as a human tribe, to think differently and to really innovate ahead of time, to really build a sustainable future. So I'll just let me know, Shikha, if once my screen is visible.
Sure, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Okay, super. Yeah, so I'll dive in straight, and I thought, I'll start off with 3 lessons. And, I think actually, let me sort of give you all a caveat, right? I think with COVID, it's kind of not just unlocked people's, expertise and creativity, but I think it's just brought in a lot of hypotheses, right? I've never read so much about everyone's point of view on what COVID's brought in, how do you deal with it, and so on. So this is purely my perspective, and more importantly, how I sort of experienced life as, an individual, as a consumer, as a parent, and more importantly, in my career as a marketer. Especially having moved into a new organization practically 3 months before COVID. And it was interesting because the categories that I was working on were, vastly and potentially positively impacted. But it was really, important and imperative on how we, and the pivots that we built this entire, these categories on. So I think firstly, for me, one of the biggest lessons that COVID has taught us has been the fact that crisis really magnifies your flaws, right? And I think, therefore, it's very important. And I think it's, as you all sit back, it's very important to be asking ourselves some of the most basic questions. Really, COVID has taken, all of us to some extent back to the drawing board, right? To just question the basics of our business. So I think the first question in my mind is, to today question how future proofed, is your attitude and your business. And I think future proofing of your attitude is more important than your business. So how future forward are you when you evaluate a business proposition, when you evaluate a product idea, versus being very here and now. I think the second question, and I was just, hearing Dipali talk about, AI and machine learning. I think what it's really also sort of exposed us to is being digital versus being digital enough. It's clearly been an exposure of sorts for many organizations, where they realized that they were not digital enough in the times of lockdown to be able to manage the situation of broken supply chains and so on, specifically in the physical world, because eventually, all said and done, the FMCG industry, which makes up for a very, very large part of the economy and impacts our daily lives, was definitely one that saw a massive impact of COVID. Aside, of course, every organization and every sector, sort of seeing its own impact. So, what sort of set of the questions that, I think we should all be sort of asking ourselves is, are we agile enough? I think agility has definitely come in as a key skill set or competency that not just every organization, but every individual needs to build in. And again, it's important to understand what agility means. What is it that you need to, ensure you take with yourself and run, and what is it that you need to let go of? I think creative disruption is another important piece, right? As marketers, we typically tend to fall in love with what we create. We tend to also almost sometimes get very defensive. I think what's also important is to realize that there are times when you need to let go of your own, creative ideas and your own propositions, and let it give birth to something new. And I think finally, always it's very important to be investing in future. I've been fortunate to be part of organizations, that have not just looked at building portfolios for here and now, but really, ensuring that they're looking 3 to 5 years hence. But I must admit, As a marketer, I think COVID was as much a challenge for any marketer, as much as it was for the regular consumer. This is a pandemic or a global situation that's probably something that we've never imagined or understood. But I think nonetheless, as we look back, we've probably gained a lot more depending on, I think, our attitudes and how we've looked at this as an opportunity, or potentially as a lost opportunity. I think the second thing that it brought to life, and again, especially for organizations which have a very strong physical presence, and I think as much it's applicable to others, is about you can't really sustain in a silo, right? So I think an important message to the students is, if you think just being great at what you do alone is enough, it isn't. How good are you as a team player? How good are you at collaborating, with your teammates, bringing the better out of people? I think acknowledging the strengths of others as much as understanding your own strengths, and sometimes having the willingness and the ability to step back and let someone else take center stage, therefore became very, very important. And in the context of businesses, again, it was very important, to realize that your connectedness and your connects with your consumers of all these years is really what would have sort of stood you into a good place. How connected have you and how much you invested in towards understanding your customer and consumer needs is something that would have helped an organization to address this adversity a lot better. An important point is about building ecosystem partnerships. Conventionally, the way businesses have been built has been, about their own GTM systems, their own brand building. But increasingly, the way we're seeing, not just digitization happening, but with just, a plethora of businesses come in. I think a smart marketer would be one who would look at leveraging the ecosystem partnerships, leveraging adjacent businesses, leveraging complementary businesses, and seeing how do I eventually reach out to the consumer in a smarter, in a more relevant, and in a more efficient manner. So it's not just about my GTM system, it's not just about my own business. And let me give an example, right? When in the month of March and April, when the lockdown suddenly happened, we saw supply chains and the whole frontal distribution systems completely breaking down. And at that time, it was amazing that it's completely human ingenuity. We saw our sales teams tying up with Zoomcar, with Ubers and Olas, and ensuring that the supply to our distributor partners wasn't getting hindered. They were leveraging a lot of alternate models of distributing. And I think that is really what I mean by ecosystem partnerships. In the marketing world, it's not just about saying that my, salesman who carries, potentially 500 SKUs should be carrying my next range. It's about saying who in the industry potentially has a better reach, let's say to the chemist channels, to carry my hygiene products. So I think that kind of ecosystem thinking is extremely important. And I think, finally, what really, I think, stood out for organizations is the culture. Is your culture one that's rewarding individual excellence, or is it one that's rewarding team skills, the power of one and the power of teams? And I genuinely believe that organizations that have invested in building a culture of team excellence, a culture of, rewarding group achievements, are ones that have actually managed to tide this a lot better. Because this was a time, when we were all sort of physically siloed, right? We were all locked up in our houses. And I think the task of business delivery and business continuity was important for everyone. And at that point, how connected and how collaborated you were, with your peers, with your cross-functional stakeholders, is really what eventually led to agility for organizations. I personally believe, and I'm going to share a few anecdotal examples from my own past year at Godrej. And I fundamentally believe there are a lot of, a big reason behind, GCPL standing tall and being one of the better performing organizations during this time. And, the fact that we came out with about 22 innovations, in over a span of about 65 to 70 days, was a great testimony to the teams coming together, with a very strong unified vision. So I think again, very often I feel that, when we're at school and college, we are very often, rewarded for individual performance, right? When we also take up sports, many people sort of dabble into individual sports, which kind of further fuels your need for individual excellence. I think what's really important, for us going forward is to build that spirit of working together in a team, and like I'll give you an example. During the month of March and April, it was really about giving the sales and the supply chain teams the center stage, giving them every potential support of saying this is what the backbone of the organization is. It wasn't about fighting that, I want to put so many GRPs on air, right? And I saw a tremendous input from my brand managers, young brand managers who came in and said that, we should actually maybe potentially cut down a lot of our media spends, but actually spend behind our, distribution systems. We should actually sort of, try and ensure that, we don't lose our frontline sales force. So I think that's really the power of a team. The third lesson, of course, and I think that's something that's been tested over time, is that for a brand, trust is potentially the biggest asset that you can build. And trust is definitely not something which is built in a year or in a day. Leave aside in a pandemic, because typically in a pandemic year, you would be extremely wary of trying something that you don't trust, right? The one brand of whether it is a sanitizer or a soap or a spray that you would reach out for would be one that you would trust. It's a little like, an examination. You probably would never change your pen or your choice of a pen just a day before the examination, because you've been so used to the way you write with a certain pen, right? So it's a very classical insight. And so, the one thing for brands that are resurrecting themselves, or brands that are building, or in the process of, coming up, and I think it's again a lesson that's resonated over years and over decades and centuries, is that you've got to question what is the reason for the brand to exist. I very often see that, the first question a lot of brand managers ask is, what's my A&M? How much am I going to spend on digital media? But I think just going back to the books is important to ask, what's the reason for my brand to exist in the life of the consumer, right? And that's also a reason which will, one, probably help you to sustain your business. Two, it will help you to creatively disrupt yourself if you feel that you're not relevant. And three, it will definitely flank you from competition. The second question that sort of, came up in my mind as I was building the entire Protect Hygiene range for GCPL was, how have brands been built during crisis? Now, an interesting set of examples. I don't know how many would know, but Lysol as a brand was actually launched way back, in the late 19th century, to protect consumers against a specific, type of cholera that had broken in Germany. And then later, of course, in 1918, it was widely used during the Spanish flu in the United States of America. Now, back home, and I'm really sort of proud to share this, but Godrej was the first brand of soap and the first brand of vegetable, a soap that was made out of vegetable fat and, vegetable oils and not animal fat, that was launched during during this pandemic or during the Spanish flu. And as I look back, it's actually been about 100 years. And one of the conversations that we were having, with Nisaba was, what are we building with this pandemic, right? Never let a crisis go waste. You must have heard this very famous quote. And I think a lot of marketers have actually made a very, very good use of the pandemic in terms of unlearning, in terms of, learning and relearning a lot of lessons. So I think it'll be great, I think, for, for all of you as students to go back and read and understand, how would, if at all you need to build a brand during a crisis, what are some of the pivots of doing that? And I think thirdly, I'd say a big question, towards building trust is, what does it really mean to be authentic? I speak a lot about authenticity. I was also hearing Dipali talk about authenticity. It's absolutely, a must-have for a brand. But it's important to understand how do you, how would you really be seen as an authentic brand? And trust me, consumers today are way smarter. They have a lot more exposure to information. They're extremely sharp when they're making decisions. And so don't even try to fool the consumer. So the more authentic, the more genuine a brand is, the better is its right to be able to, stay relevant in the life of a consumer. So I'd say stay real, stay consistent, and I think constantly keep listening to the consumers. That's really the heart of marketing. Any of, all of you who are budding marketers, if you keep the consumer at the center, of your life and existence and your career, you would always be a more thorough, a more respected marketer. So that kind of brings me to the topic, that I've been asked to, to address today, which is about saying, is innovation really critical in times of, evolving consumer realities? And I think the operative word here is evolving. We all know that over the last decade or the rate of, or the acceleration of change has been way more than ever before. But probably the last 1 year has almost equaled 5 decades of changes. And the most obvious answer, of course, is yes. Innovation always has been critical. It's never been as critical as it is today. But innovation, is not just about product innovation. Innovation is about innovating your processes. Innovation is about innovating, the way you sort of listen to the consumer, the way you reach out to consumers, and the way you think. So again, like I said in the morning, in your everyday lives, question yourself, what is it that you can do differently? And what is it that you can achieve when you look at the same thing differently, right? Whether you're processing what's been taught in class, whether you're reading a case study, how would you have done the same thing differently? And, I'm quite sure that's going to always, get you to think of alternate ideas, get you to think of fairly revolutionary ideas as well. So, really in trying to break innovate, and I've been kind of, thinking about this, right? There have been numerous people who've spoken about innovation and will continue to. I'm probably a much lesser mortal. So I said, let me stay authentic and sort of, try and carve out what innovate would mean to me in this post-COVID era. So really the way, I've kind of broken innovate in this era, and I think this should hold true in any situation, is about saying innovation is eventually about being able to imagine, being able to imagine things differently from the way it is today, differently from the way most people do, and differently with a purpose. And when you do all of these together, that imagination would probably inspire, a large number of people. So always think, always imagine to be able to inspire, and that will always, again, give you an anchoring, a foundation to your thoughts. Secondly, of course, I think the N for me actually also means new ways of working, right? We've this disruption, I think, has brought in a lot of things to the fore. We always had technology, but we probably didn't use it as effectively. Today we are all working from home, something you would have never imagined. I couldn't have imagined sitting at home with all my team members sitting in their respective houses and launching a portfolio of 12 mega categories, from personal hygiene to home hygiene to kitchen hygiene, right? But that happened. And all of that without losing connect with consumers, without, losing connect, without letting go of any sort of quality, checks. So it's amazing how the virtual in a large way has actually managed to replace the physical. So I think it's important to, again, remember that these new ways of working will continue to be there and they will keep evolving. A big question today is, talent is suddenly so, sort of location free. Why do I need to relocate from a Mumbai to a Delhi or from a Delhi to a Bangalore, even if I have to work out of organizations based there? So I think, all of you, as you sort of begin your, career journeys, or, some of you would probably even dabble into entrepreneurial ventures, remember the new ways of working, and probably question some of the norms that we've all lived with. An important piece, I think, and that's always been true, is, innovation is not just about a path-breaking idea. It's about really nurturing an idea to execution. So in an innovation, an idea is just as important as the execution itself. And very often, I've seen a lack of balance tends to be a big reason for an innovation failure. So it's important that, you spend time, but of course now in the new age world with agility, on an idea, and question the idea of how it, how does it really, how is it imaginative to inspire people, but at the same time have a very clear roadmap into execution. The O for me actually now stands for an omni-channel presence, so very different from a multi-channel. We all have sort of grown up in a world where there were different channels which were almost siloed. I could go to a modern trade outlet, I could go to a big bazaar, I could go to a grocer nearby, I could shop something online. Today, we're all living in an omni-channel, and I'll talk a little about how the two are different, and how, as a marketeer, do you need to be alive to this, to this ecosystem that's evolved around the consumer. The V is viability and sustainability, and I would think that for an innovation, again, more so now, it's very important to not just look at your idea being a great disruptive idea, but also, is it viable? Is it sustainable? Will this stand the test of time? Always ask yourself a question: why will this innovation fail? I've seen, most of my innovations that failed were ones where I never questioned their failure, where I never questioned their existence. But I was so sure, that these will go out, hit the market, and there'll be a grand success. And some of the innovations that actually succeeded were ones where I constantly put the, wore the devil's advocate and said, but why would this fail? Who could, hurt this innovation? What could bring this innovation down? And that actually got me thinking very differently. Authenticity, we spoke about it. I think a very, very clear tool to build trust. Authenticity is something that's probably going to be more important with every day, as consumers have access to every piece of information, right? So it's best to be genuine. It's best to be real. It's best to be yourself. Trend spotting, again, I think for marketers, it's extremely important that, you've got your eyes and ears open all the time, your antennas on all the time. Of course, we've got this huge cloud of social media where there's constant chatter, where there are constant trends. I think it's important, again, to spot trends, filter them, funnel them, and say, these are the one or two trends that really make sense for me. And I'm going to talk about something interesting that we did with Synthol very recently, which was actually an insight that constantly came out of our conversations with consumers, which was sort of spoken of on social media a lot. And I think which us as individuals, were missing out a lot on. And I think finally, I'd say, and this should actually be the first pivot of innovation, is an enhanced consumer experience. An idea is never a great idea if it's not taking the consumer from where they are today to a better place. So always, again, question your innovation idea on how is it really improving the life of the consumer or the need that you're going after, and how is that significantly making the consumer better? Because if it's an incremental enhancement, your innovation probably at some point in time is going to flatten out. So what I will do is, I'm just going to very quickly get into each of these. I don't want to get into a large Gyan session, but what I will do is, talk a little about some of my experiences, over years with marketing and brand building and category building, and how, these have, been, I'd say, helpful tools for me. And I think, yeah, before I get in, to the session, absolutely, and of course, right, leverage the power of technology. I think there is technology that's available, at every nook and corner, waiting for us to, put it to good use across each of these pieces that I spoke of, right? Whether that's viability, whether that's omni-channel presence, whether that's about trend spotting. How well are you leveraging technology? How much are you investing in automation and marketing automation? And how much are you investing in technology ahead of time is, again, going to be a very, very critical behavior, I'd say, that will differentiate you from the others. So constantly keep questioning yourself that, is there a better way of doing what I'm doing? Am I leveraging technology, to its best potential? So I think with that, let's sort of get into each of the pivots. So when I kind of put out, if this was actually a physical session where I had the opportunity to interact with you all in the real world, I would have asked you, why do you think I just picked up, these 4 logos? There are so many examples of innovation. There are such path-breaking innovations that, that have constantly been around. But since I don't have the luxury to do that, I'll kind of answer myself. Personally, for me, these are all organizations, that have been built on a very sharp pivot of imagining the world in a very different and in a very largely different manner. None of them really, looked at the consumer need in an incremental manner. They had a very transformative idea or imagination. And all of them, have the ability to inspire, a generation of millions. If you look at each of these brands and many more, I obviously sort of, couldn't capture the, the world of examples that we have, but just sort of taking them as indicative, these are all ones that had imagination as their soul, but they had the ability to inspire, and they're all organizations that have sort of weathered, and have sort of stood the test of time. They've been attacked by local and value players and, a lot of Me Too's. But I think the one big difference has been that, they were always able to imagine their presence or imagine their purpose way ahead of anyone else. And I think that is something that's been truly inspirational. So I think keep looking for those examples, read, and I'd urge you, read as much as you can read about, interesting things happening. Put yourself in those spaces and say, what would I do differently? I think the second thing I spoke about this, right? Embrace new ways of working. How are you going forward, really going to leverage these new realities, where people are working from home, they would have their kids around. And, how are you also building empathy at the same time while you're embracing these new realities? Secondly, and, this is not really something which is new, but I think which is, which can be a huge force for all of us as marketers. And I think in any profession is to leverage the power of diversity. And innovation can be truly transformative if there is a very strong force of diversity. And that could be diversity of mind, that could be diversity of gender, that could be diversity of, ethnicity. But again, keep questioning that, do you have a lot of people around you who think in a very similar manner? Then there's a problem, So how are you encouraging, how are we all encouraging diversity? I love it when my team, puts back a spanner at me and says, we don't agree with your idea, because gone are the days where, you want to create a yes boss team. A truly, a truly transformative, a truly strong team is one that can actually constructively critique each other to be able to bring out a much stronger output, right? So I think it's very important that, even as organizations and even as institutes and and academic institutes, we encourage to bring out the power of diversity. We get students to think in diverse ways. We get students to, to think, how somebody in another country, in another, socio-economic strata would approach the same problem. So again, I think the power of diversity is something which is, we're kind of just scratching the surface. And, very often I've heard so much conversation around gender diversity. That's probably because that's the, the most glaring gap. But there is so much more to diversity. And, I'd really, again, urge you all to read about diversity. And more importantly, while we're at gender diversity, it's important to understand and appreciate as professionals, what gender intelligence means, right? And gender intelligence is very different from gender diversity. Gender intelligence is about truly saying that, a female mind works very differently from a male mind. And how do I, leverage this difference in the best manner? How do I get them to do tasks which they are, fundamentally designed, their brains are fundamentally designed to execute phenomenally. So again, that understanding will become even more important, as we deal with these new realities. I spoke about nurturing an idea to execution, and And this is particularly important, because if you look at the FMCG world in India, only 3% of the innovations that are launched in a year actually see the light of year 3, which essentially means that on an average, about 15 to 20,000 innovations, and there could be different kinds of innovations that are launched each year. Of course, the COVID year has seen some phenomenal number of innovations. I completely lost count. It's almost getting into 50,000 plus. But out of all those numbers, right, there is only 3% that see the light of day of year 3. And really the test of an innovation is whether it can actually get to year 3. So usually I've seen most innovations hit a great track in year 1, unless something is dramatically wrong. You get to great trials, but what very often we miss is whether my trials are converting into repeats. So it's again important to have a very clear line of sight on saying my idea, right? How different is my idea? How path breaking is my idea. But when I actually execute the idea all the way to to its closure, and to its to eventually taking it to the consumer, am I being able to bring that idea to light, right? So at an idea level, I knew that I need to take the GCPL hygiene business. I need to build a hygiene business, because that's very obvious, right? I mean, everyone said that hygiene is going to be one of the biggest categories. It's the biggest need state. The question was, how am I executing? How am I ensuring that I'm building expertise, while there are these stalwart brands like Dettol and Lifebuoy in the market? But how am I building expertise? But at the same time, what's my idea of appealing to the consumer and being relevant to the consumer? And finally, when I'm executing it, right, the packaging that I'm taking the consumer, to the consumer, the media to shelf, the way I'm talking to the consumer, is my idea still holding true? And that's really what makes up for a business success. Building omni-channel presence, and I spoke about it, and I think, I'm not going to deliberate on this because this is a new reality. We didn't even realize, as consumers, when we moved from multi-channel to omni-channel. Today, as a consumer, leave aside a marketer, I find myself, ordering something on Big Basket, while at the same time, I know that I need something in my kitchen right away, and I'm calling my, my nearby grocer and saying, hey, can you deliver this? While the rest of my stuff is coming from Big Basket. And while, what is not available on Big Basket, I'm also sort of, tinkering with Amazon. So, we don't realize that, that we're all in this omni-channel, presence, because it's just become so seamless, right? While you're doing all of this, by the way, there is a brand that's targeting you on Facebook, and you sort of click on the link, and it's a cosmetic brand, and it kind of lands you into another world, and you just ordered things there, and you didn't even realize that you were actually dealing with 4 different platforms. So again, as a marketer, for the consumer, if the entire experience is so seamless, then why should I, as a marketer, look at targeting the consumer in a Kirana store differently from the way I target them on their mobile, from the way I target them on social media? So the power of bringing an idea from media to shelf, with a strong amplification of a unified message, is a very, very important task for a marketer. How do I not think, and I tell you, we're all, and I think me and my generation are to blame, right? We're all the TV marketers. We're all evolved as marketers, who put a lot of money on, on television and feel really good looking at our advertising. Today, the reality, honestly, is that I don't know how much the TV advertising is really helping us. Now, it's a different matter, and I'm sure Dipali will disagree, but I also don't know how much my digital spends are helping me, because measurability is a question mark. But I certainly know that there's a very strong layer of efficiency. I know that there are consumers who are out there, because I, as an individual, and I as a consumer, am very much there on digital media. So the question is about thinking again consumer out. It's all about consumer centricity. What is the way, how do I understand my on platform dynamics? How is a consumer making the choice on an Amazon, and how is that different from when she is in a store, touching and feeling the product? And what is it that, how is it that my message to her needs to be any different or unified? So you've got to start thinking, of this, almost sort of, consolidated kind of a world of, there is this always on, consumer, and how are you really targeting them in a more unified manner? I don't want to be, sort of struck by absolutely confusing messages, at different medium. So how are you making the marketing dollar multiply and how are you making your spends get you a multiplier, with just building an element of efficiency and efficacy. Of course, I spoke about viability, right? And I think this is going to be true again now more than ever before. I think, sustainability is something that's been spoken about for years now, but it's again never been as true as now. We clearly know that we've done a lot of damage to Mother Earth and to the environment at large. What's important is, are you evaluating, how your innovation is going to be viable and sustainable in the way this world is evolving. We're talking about minimalism today, right? But at the same time, there is a vast leg of consumerism that exists. How is it that your product, right, even though it may have a great proposition for the consumer, it may be absolutely feasible for you to take that business. The question is your business model viable? And I think what COVID has taught us, especially, is to now question that, is your business model, especially for the brick and mortar kind of organizations, and businesses, is that, is it really viable to take on something like a lockdown, right? Where suddenly your supply chain is hindered, where suddenly, you cannot make supplies to the organization. Are you flexible? Are you agile enough again, to take all of, your expertise on ground to the offline, to the online world? And how are you able to sort of make those navigations? So that whole viability and business model question is again very, very important. Again, I think something around authenticity and trust, and I can't, sort of insist on this any less, but it's something that the consumer can see through. So let me give you an example. We've got a brand called Synthol, right? But the proposition is all about alive is awesome, right? And it's a brand that's truly about exploration and travel and, really sort of, letting out the explorer in you. And, when COVID happened, and, we typically do a lot of, IMC, a lot of on ground and offline and online amplification. And we said, look, travel is not happening, right? And this is definitely something which is out of the window. Now, the one thing that we realized is that while travel was physically not happening, people were really missing their travel, right? Because for India, at least for large part, this was summer vacations, where you have your annual family holiday, any ways, for this better part of the country, the weather is such that you head out to the hills or to the beaches. And the one thing that we were constantly catching from consumers was that, they're all missing stepping out and missing their holidays and vacations. And, there was constant, sighing of, how will we ever, vacation again? And the one insight, that we picked up was that, there is this feeling of nostalgia about travel, right? And so we said, as a brand, that's all about bringing freshness and exploration. How can we still be relevant to you? And, that's really the time where we actually got into this large, always on content strategy. And we said, we're a brand that's about the product experience, but we're also a brand that's about the real experiences, right? So we started out this content strategy piece, and I would really urge you all to, visit the Synthol social handles. There's been absolutely brilliant work that's been put in, by my teams. And, the fundamental insight was a very sharp consumer insight, saying, we all miss being outdoors. And, we sort of brought this whole Alive Adventures, Synthol Alive Adventures, where we roped in, some of the, better known, explorers and travelers who were exactly resonating the same thing, right? They had not been able to travel either. And, we said, why don't we sort of, get them to talk about, their travel explorations. One thing that we all were doing at that time was looking at our, old travel pictures. I remember last going to Europe a year before and looking at my pictures and saying, oh my God, when will I ever, step out of the house? And that actually is something that truly resonated with consumers. The consumers came back and said, this is such brilliant piece of content because it is so relevant. They didn't really see this as a brand pushing the content out, but they actually saw the brand being their voice, being the voice of the consumer. And where, while most, soap and hygiene brands are talking about germ protection, and about very functional benefits, at Synthol, we said, we know how you feel. And, why don't we get these, these people, these influencers talk about their experiences, and, why don't we get consumers to talk about their experiences back to us? And there's been phenomenal, UGC and phenomenal response from the consumers saying, when COVID, is when everything's all right, this is where I want to head out on my vacation, posting pictures, sharing a lot of content with us on their holidays. And I think that's my entire point about when you're an authentic brand, it doesn't matter, whether you're talking germ protection, as long as you're remaining relevant, remaining consistent, more importantly, and being part of the organization, part of the conversation with the consumers. The consumer will see value in interacting with you. So, I'd always urge that, don't just, and I'm going to be talking about trend spotting next, but I'd say, don't just jump onto a bandwagon because it feels, the cool thing to do. But question, is your brand really one that can associate with something like that in a very legitimate manner? Finally, again, I think I spoke about this, trend spotting to stay relevant, absolutely important. On one of our brands, hair color and hair color was not really a essential category for the initial part of COVID. But what we got to know from consumers is that, they were all doing a DIY, right? Because when your hair is graying, it grays, right? And there's very little you can do about it. So if you want to put a hair color, what do you do? Because the salons were closed, and so there was a lot of DIY that was happening. Now, incidentally, we also realized that Karan Johar was, cribbing on his social media platform about him graying and people calling him uncle. And I think the brand did a tremendous job of, trend spotting, and they kind of got Karan Johar, to talk to sort of use Godrej Expert hair creme, and, built a large chatter on social media around, how he transformed himself, with this sachet, with this easy to use product sitting at home. So again, a very simple example, but, there's a lot of small sort of, trends around us. We don't sort of always need a eureka moment, or something that's absolutely, path breaking, but there will always be these small trends that add up, right? So always keep sort of looking for those, and keep, looking for multipliers, and more importantly, looking for opportunities to own it. And I think finally, I'd say none of this is worth it if you're not managing to, improve consumer experience, if you don't know what your consumer really needs. So, in the midst of COVID, all of us marketers at GCPL undertook more than about 4 to 5,000 consumer emotions, and all of that leveraging the power of technology. Usually we would do these consumer emotions by visiting homes of consumers, but we took that through technology because, the consumer had clearly embraced technology, but we didn't let our consumer connect go down. And that was also the reason why we managed to be so agile in terms of, bringing out almost 8 to 9 campaigns in the midst of COVID, bringing out about 12 to, 18 mega innovations, because, we kind of stayed true, very close to the consumer. We knew what the consumer needed. We were constantly measuring consumer satisfaction. That's really important, even for ongoing brands, to constantly keep checking, is there something that, that's sort of bothering the consumer? And this is a very basic thing, but I can tell you that a lot of, decision making and a lot of reversal of decision making has happened, in the midst of COVID. So it's been extremely important to, sort of get a sense from the consumer on what you're doing right, and, can you change, tweak, modify your strategy, and, or what your brand is bringing to the consumers. So, my humble request to all marketers is, be a chief marketing officer, be a, chief brand officer, but at the end of the day, please be a chief consumer officer, because eventually, whether you start out as a brand manager, or you end up being the CMO, all that you are doing is eventually for that elusive consumer, right? And don't let it be elusive. Go meet them, talk to them. That's really the power of marketing and consumer centricity. So I thought I'd sort of leave you with a quote from the greatest, where Steve Jobs said that, innovation is not the ability to see, is the ability to see change as an opportunity and not as a threat, right? I think that's fundamentally the difference in mindset of how winning organizations and winning brands see a tough opportunity, or a tough situation as an opportunity, while others look at it as a threat. So that's really all from my end, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Open to any questions. Shikha, I think you're on mute.
Am I now audible? Okay. Okay, so that happens. So I was saying, ma'am, thank you for the wonderful session. There were some great insights out there. You said crisis magnifies flaws. How true is that? And you said you can't sustain in silos. And the beautiful example you shared from your own organization, wherein your branding team, stepped in for your sales. And future proofing of your attitude is important. Trust is biggest asset of a brand, you said. And toward the end of your presentation, you again talked about authenticity and trust. So as I said, there were many wonderful insights that were there in your session. I liked one the most. What are we building out of this pandemic? What are we unlearning and relearning? I think this is one very, very important question that we all need to ask ourselves. So thank you for today serving as a reminder of the same. You talked about leveraging the power of technology, embracing new work of working, and having empathy at the same time. Some very important insights, especially for our marketing students who are there, when you spoke about building omni-channel presence, ensure viability and sustainability, trend setting to stay relevant. Thank you. Can't thank you enough, Anuja ma'am, for the great insights that you have given to us and our students. So if you allow, ma'am, we would like to proceed with the Q&A. So there are some students who wish to ask you questions, and first amongst them is Guru Sharan Kaur. You there, Guru Sharan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
You are, dear. Go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. Myself, Guru Sharan Kaur from IIMP PGDM. My question to you is, what is the next market segment in which Godrej consumer product is targeting to enter?
So there are many segments, some that I can talk of, some which will be fairly confidential, but I think as we speak, the important piece I think for us, Gurusharan, this year would be to sustain the large number of innovations that we brought to the market last year. To give you a little perspective, typically innovations in an FMCG kind of a space used to take about 18 to 24 months, right? And a lot of my innovations have taken that long. So I think we all fairly surprised ourselves when we launched these innovations over about 65 to 70 days, from idea to in market. I think what will be really important for us as an organization is to strengthen these innovations. And like I said, only 3% innovations make it to year 3, and my attempt would be that we at least hit a target of about 80%. So what we will really be focusing on is we've got this extremely disruptive hand wash format called Protect Magic, which is a powder to liquid hand wash, truly built on a very disruptive technology, and it's extremely affordable at ₹15. So I think with the way at which hygiene has really opened up and the need for hygiene has opened up, I think it will be very important for us to look at expanding Magic, ensure that we reach out to as many households in India, and get that power of hand washing and hygiene to every Indian. That's really a dream for me. And so I think this year will be a lot more about focusing on on what we've launched last year.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Nikhil Kulkarni. Nikhil, you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so good evening, ma'am. This is Nikhil Kulkarni here from Indira School of Business Studies PGDM batch. That was really enlightening session, ma'am. Thank you so much for your this informative session. So I would like to ask you, ma'am, that what are the exact processes do the successful innovators use to validate their ideas and to bring them into the market?
I think the first thing, Nikhil, is to start out, and it's all a function of how much time you have at hand. But ideally, let's say in your regular day-to-day job, I think it's very important to just keep talking to consumers and look for needs that may be latent needs. Very often consumers may not be able to express their needs. So what's really important is again to sort of try and sieve through your conversations on what those needs are. I think the next is to say, how are those needs really being met today, right? Now, is there, let's say, a household jugaad, or is there, a product that, meets the need only about 50% or, and therefore, how do you then look at a product that solves for all those, for all the needs that the consumer has? What are the triggers? What are the barriers? And are you really solving for each of them? Then, of course, you get into, assessing the pricing. Will the consumer be willing to buy my product at a certain price? Of course, am I making the right kind of gross margins on the product? what would be my mix towards building awareness. So there is a vast range that I think starts and ends at the consumer with, of course, a lot of financial checks, a lot of checks around, whether my creative strategy is breaking through, a very strong competitor scan, to see who is it that could come and disrupt me, when I do something like this. So there's a very large process, but I would again say the more you invest in understanding your consumer needs, the sharper would be your articulation of the innovation idea.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one is from Shruti Bhamre. Shruti, you there?
Yes, ma'am. Hopefully, I'm audible.
You are.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Shruti Bhamre, and I'm from IMP MBA 2022 program. My question to you, ma'am, is that in this COVID era, when we started, what was the special strategies that you applied as you went on from surviving to thriving, as in from when it started? And also, in the same situation, what was much more difficult for you? Was it surviving or was it later on thriving? Thank you.
Thanks, Shruti. That's a very interesting question. I think marketers, very much like consumers, were facing a pandemic of this scale for the first time. So, I don't think anyone is a superhero at that. So I think survival was definitely, for most people, the first question. I think thankfully for large organizations, for organizations which have strong foundations, survival wasn't really a challenge. But like I said, it's all an attitude of whether you look at the situation as an opportunity or as a threat. I think what we did is, we very clearly as a leadership team met and, and looked at various scenarios, right? And like I said, a lot of the scenarios were built on, optimism. Some of it was also built on pessimism, and some of it was built on realism to say, how bad could this be? What if there was a lockdown, till August, right? So how do we, how would we play it out? What are the categories that we want to focus on? Now, obviously, because I look after personal care and hygiene, and there were, part of the essential category, we decided to focus more on those. We decided to not cut, consumer spends there at all. We ensured that, we were doing everything possible and humanly possible to, get our back end and our front end sorted. So I think absolute kudos to our sales and supply chain teams. They've, like I said, they've been absolutely the frontline warriors at this time. So it was a lot of, choicing that we had to make, a lot of building a very strong business case for why one category needs to be prioritized. If I must go to the market, what should I be carrying? How do we, scale up e-commerce? Thankfully, we've had a very strong presence in e-commerce, but it was really about saying, how do you scale up for e-commerce? Because as we all know, traditional trade is still a very, very large component in India, right? And it's very difficult to make up for that versus the others. But we made a lot of sharp choices, I'd say, and I think we were very quick to take decisions. Very often also what happens is that sometimes analysis paralysis tends to happen, right? So it's also important to say, and I think one of the pieces on this whole ambiguity, by the way, was, you never knew what you decided today, would it even hold tomorrow, the rate at which change was happening. But what we did is we kept the whole conversation fairly modular, right? We said, we will, keep taking stock every 2 to 3 days. If changes need to happen, we will make it in a certain way. Very interesting thing for us was, where we had a hand wash brand called Protect. And we said, we're going to now take this into 12 categories, because we very clearly started mapping out as a consumer, what are the needs that the consumer would now have towards hygiene, and how do you, really ensure that there's the right product, the right set of claims, the right set of efficacy that's going out to the consumer in a very decisions, a lot of implication assessment of that. And, at the end of the day, being quick and agile to take those decisions. And sorry, I think you had a second question on, so yeah, I think that was our journey from surviving to thriving. We obviously posted growth in all of the quarters, which was, I thought, phenomenal. But more importantly, I think at this time, what we also said is, and I think that's a very strong Godrej trait, to always keep the community, ahead of business. We did massive drives around, soap and hand wash distribution. So we went out to the front line, to the healthcare workers. We ensured that, we were right there with the community where they needed it. We later on, of course, distributed a lot of sprays, etc. when the railways started out. So like I said, one part of the entire aspect is also about authenticity and trust, and we kind of stood by that throughout. We said eventually what's going to be important as an organization and as a brand is how helpful and how useful have you been for the community and for the consumer at large. And that, I think, helped us survive and thrive, hopefully.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering it so comprehensively. Ma'am, last question. Durgesh Savkar has posted a question in the chat box, and he wants to know, is there any way to get into marketing, brand management, or marketing communications of an FMCG company without doing sales? So basically, can you get into marketing without having done sales?
I would say you can, but my advice very strongly would be don't. It's very important to understand the business cold, like they say, right? Like the way they would say that at Pepsi, to get to know the business cold, right? Because the cool chain is very important. I think the kind of insights you mine when you are in sales, right? And in fact, doing sales early on in your career gives you a very realistic assessment of the category, the competition, the retailer, who's a very, very important part of the entire value chain. And it gives you it makes your fundamentals of FMCG very strong. There's a very crude line in FMCG, in FMCG business actually, which is "Jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai," right? And to know ki kya dikhta hai, you have to be on ground. So my humble suggestion is, that spend the first 2 to 3 years really sweating it out, in had a very strong foundation of sales, and they've never really forgotten that foundation.
Thanks, ma'am. Very valuable advice. Thank you so much, Anuja, ma'am. And there are many compliments for you in the chat box. Wonderful. Let me have the pleasure of reading them out for you. Wonderful session, ma'am. Great insights from the industry insider like you. Display of true Godrej values. It's a long list, ma'am. Awesome session, Anuja, ma'am. Thank you. Great. Thank you, ma'am. That was a great session. Got very authentic information. Then many thank yous for sharing your wisdom with us. It was a great session and wonderful experience to listen to you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Such an informative session. Thank you. And many amazings and many thank yous out there.
So much. Thanks a lot. And once again, a heartfelt gratitude for the recognition. I think I'm still a student of marketing, like most of you, learning every day on the job. And it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here. A big thank you to, to Madhuri ma'am, for constantly coordinating for these sessions, to Karan, and once again, a big thank you to all of you, and the very, very best. May you all shine, and, maybe see fantastic professionals do benefit. Like I said, don't let a crisis go waste. So I hope, you all make the most of your learnings and invest in yourself, right? Do invest in your learning. We're all lifelong students, and let's continue to be that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anuja. It was a pleasure listening to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so that brings us to the closure of Indira Brand Slam Summit and Awards 2021. Our last speaker for the day, Mr. Kapil Buduk, could not join us due to some medical exigencies. So that's why we said that brings us closure to this great event that Indira hosts every year. And as we said in the beginning, that this year Brand Slam is even more important because here this time we were not just celebrating their contribution to the corporate world or to the society and community at large, but also the amazing spirit that have been displayed by all these amazing speakers that joined us yesterday and today. So we had 14 awardees and 13 very insightful speakers. We had Mr. Achin Setia, Mr. Guneet Singh, Mr. Vaibhav Kajju, Ms. Kavanidhi Narayan, Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Ms. Dipali Nair, Anuja Mishra ma'am just spoke with us, Kapil Buduk sir could not join us, and then we had 6 speakers yesterday, Mr. Manish Gupta, Mr. Sandeep Gupta, Mr. Manoj Dalwani, Mr. Sujan Roy, Mr. Akhilesh Pandey, Mr. Rishikar Krishna. Great job to the corporate relations teams of IGI as always for having these amazing people on board and making the event even greater and very, very beneficial and meaningful for all of us. There was some great insight. There was very, I have had my notes full of having listened to these 13 amazing people out there. And of course, kudos to the IT team, because since pandemic, IT has become backbone of every single thing that we do. So without them, it was not possible to have a flawless event. And of course, the branding team. So these are the three, pillars, and of course, all the support staff that we had. So there were various committees and everybody, but these three people, these three verticals deserve a special mention. So thank you so much, Madhuri ma'am. I see you here on the screen. And, for industry academia interface is something we strongly believe, which is, at the core of everything that we do at IGI. And thanks for having such a robust industry academia interface.
The thank you would not be complete without thanking you and Rita for doing such a fantastic job of comparing the show, and with all liveliness and enthusiasm that you always bring. Thank you so much to both of you.
Kind words, ma'am. Kind words. Thank you so much for having faith in us. So yeah, 3 cheers for all of us. Thank you so much. Okay, and all you students out there, thank you for being a patient audience and for all the curiosity that you displayed out there. There were so many questions, and sorry to those whose question we could not take up due to paucity of time. But yes, keep the curiosity alive and keep implementing the various learnings that we all have drawn in past 2 days, that is today and yesterday.
Thank you.
Maybe sign off now, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shiva. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.